Oh, yes, the four gentlemen
3 minutes.
sit around the table, each trying to look more
Il y a
handsome,
5, c'est lui. Ouais.
dapper,
Donc,
confident than the next.
tu l'enlever l'autre
Jagmeet
c'est pour
has
le
changed the
village.
color of his turban tonight. It is now pink from yesterday's blue.
Merci. Bon.
He's going both with conservative and liberal colors.
Yeah.
That who is that on the right? That is... Why can't I remember his name now? Blanchette. That looks like Yves Blanchette. They're all taking notes. Why are they taking notes? Lord only knows. Could they not have come in with pieces of paper? Viva Fry, if the English debate would be as cringe as the French one, I won't be able to make it, says Spee Hansis. We better see some fireworks tonight, people. Pierre Poilievre, as I say, had better find his political sack. Start dropping some
2
bombs
minutes
tonight.
before debate.
Metaphorical, proverbial, spiritual bombs. Nothing physical. In order to give it the very hyper-realistic feel, they've got a beautiful depth of field with the camera, and absolutely no one is saying anything. All looking down. Oh my goodness, Pierre Poilievre is left-handed. Looking at his papers. Those look like election forms. He's counting to see if he has the requisite number of signatures to even be on the ballot. This would be quite the controversy if Pierre Poilievre discovered he did not have the ballot number signatures to be on the ballot. I'm joking. So, yeah, this is the election, the Canadian election debate in English. So tonight, at a disadvantage, is going to be Yves Blanchette, but I think his English is very good. And it should be fun, because for those of you who sat through
1 minute.
For those of you who sat through yesterday's debate, you don't fully appreciate how bad, how miserably bad Carney's French is. Pierre's is actually very good. And Jagmeet, oddly enough, had the best Anglo-French of the bunch. And Blanchette. Zach the cat, thank you for doing this. Oh, someone's got to do it. It's me and Pleb. I was going to try to do a crossover with Pleb, but I don't want to feel bad if I'm talking too much, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable if he's talking too much. What up, Viva from half 203 Cypher. That's an interesting name. Thank you very much. Spread the word, share the link, tweet it around. Locals, how are we doing here? In locals, oh, we got everybody. See, that's okay. We got. How does Jagmeet decide the color of his headdress? We can call it's a turban, right? I'm not being like politically incorrect. It's a turban. It's a Sikh. The Sikhs wear turbans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. Just want to make sure it's not. I know it's not a kippa. I know it's not a burqa. I know it's not a headscarf. Well, I guess maybe it is a headscarf, but yeah, turban. Okay.
Live from the atrium of Maison
Encryptus, tell me if the audio levels are not good.
Federal leaders will debate for vote.
I'm talking a lot tonight, people. If you don't want it, go watch this boring ass crap on the native channel.
François Blanchet and Jagmeet.
If you're going to talk more, I would actually turn their audio down just to hear.
From tariffs
Turn my audio
to
down.
The cost of living.
No, theirs.
Theirs? Okay. How about if I just turn my audio? My audio's up all the way.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Paikin, your moderator for tonight's debate. Each leader has agreed to the following: no notes. Answer the questions. Stay on theme.
Answer the questions. Well, they're all going to break that.
Each leader speaks will be counted on these clocks, visible to the leaders and to you at home. This is the 2025 Federal Leaders
This guy
Debate.
kind of looks like me if I got sucked through like a wormhole and stretched out a little bit and shaved and had my hair cut.
Well,
Okay.
welcome, leaders. Good to be with you here tonight in Montreal for
Who
what
are
I'm
you?
sure will be a memorable evening.
Steve Paikin.
Our first theme is tariffs and threats to Canada. And we will begin with a round of questions.
Gosh.
You will each have a minute to answer, and then we'll go to open debate. And the first question goes to Mr. Carney.
This is already bad.
Okay. What is the starting point for negotiations, Mr. Carney, with the United States if, as you have stated, our relationship with the U.S. is over as we know it?
Well, first, Steve, may I thank you and also thank fellow leaders for their service to Canada.
Count it.
People at home for taking the time to watch. I just want to underscore the premise to your question, because I think the relationship that we've had with the United States, relationship over the course of almost the last 4 decades, which has been one of steady and increasing integration, has fundamentally changed because the president is looking to fundamentally restructure the trading system. So the starting point has to be one of strength. It has to show that we have control of our own economic destiny, has to have a clear plan here at home to build this economy, to diversify our trading partners with like-minded countries.
Well, like China?
And also has to have a position of strength in terms of our reaction to the U.S. unjustified tariffs. And that's why we have put in place counter tariffs that have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here at home.
Mr. Poilievre, would you do anything differently?
Well, first of all, thank you, Steve, and thank you to our fellow
I could never do
contestants
this
here today. It's an honor to be here.
Crap.
What would I do different? Well, I'll start by what I would do the same. I think we do need to counter the American tariffs with our own to deter this economic aggression. We must make clear that we will always be sovereign and independent. What would I be doing differently? Well, we need to be in a position of strength. The Liberal government has weakened our economy with anti-energy laws, red tape, and high taxes that have driven $500 billion out of our country into the United States.
Okay.
And made us incapable of shipping our resources overseas. That weakness threatens our ability to stand up for ourselves. So what would I do? I would cut taxes, red tape, and approve our resource projects so that we can get our goods to market and bring home the jobs, so we stand up to President Trump from a position of strength.
Mr. Singh, you get the next question. Can we trust the United States to work with us on matters such as Arctic sovereignty and defense policy?
I think we've seen, first of all, good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in, and thanks for the question, Steve. We've seen what, for a lot of people, feels like a betrayal when we look at the United States. I grew up in a border town. I grew up in Windsor. And we saw how connected we were as a city and as a community. People lived on one side of the border, worked on the other. People traveled back and forth all the time. We're in the automotive capital of Canada, and we knew how important it was to be able to build cars in Canada. But we saw that those cars went back and forth across the border. Seeing what Donald Trump did to attack Canada in this unprovoked way without any justification really felt like a betrayal.
None.
And so Canadians now are right to say, well, we don't really trust Donald Trump at this point, and we can't really have a lot of faith in it.
Let's go to China.
So when it comes to our Arctic sovereignty and our security, we need to make decisions that are in our best interest and no longer be so dependent and so reliant on the U.S. And that's what I would advocate for, making sure we are resilient, independent, and less dependent on the United States.
Mr. Blanchet, for you, what supports would you want to see for industries affected by tariffs, many, of course, of which are in
counter
Quebec?
tariffs on
Many
electricity.
Of them. First, be all welcome in Quebec and Montreal. You have me because I try not to speak English in Montreal. However, I think we should never underestimate the threat that Mr. Trump poses on Quebec economy and Canada economy and Mexico economy. But we must acknowledge the fact that the economy of Quebec is built differently. The challenges are not the same. The necessity for Quebec to have at least partly its own voice in the negotiation is important. The difference between Quebec and Canada is very important in terms of economy, but also in terms of identity and language and values and who we are and the way we want to handle immigration. So we have the right to be different. And if this difference is being respected by whoever becomes Prime Minister of Canada, we will be reliable partners in order to achieve the best possible negotiation and protect ourselves and our economies.
He's basically predicting.
Merci, Monsieur Blanchet. Okay, we now move into open debate.
Yeah, we now move
and
in
I'll start
from
off,
verbal
Mr.
diarrhea
Carney, with you, and then we go from there. Do you still support dollar-for-dollar tariffs, even if they ultimately threaten Canadian jobs and businesses?
No, and in fact, we've already moved off from dollar-for-dollar tariffs.
He's been there for 1 month.
And I think we all do. The United States economy is more than 10 times the size of the Canadian economy.
And more diverse.
And the principle in terms of our counter tariffs is to have maximum impact in the United States, as I said a moment ago, minimum impact here. So we have to think about the impact on Canadian businesses. I'll give you one example, if I may. In the auto sector, the way we've designed those auto tariffs is that Canadian automakers, if they maintain production here, if they maintain their investments here, when I say Canadian automakers, I mean automakers that have jobs and plants and production in Canada, then they can have lower tariffs on what they ship to the United States. We create a huge incentive for them in order to do that. We also have carved out the Canadian auto parts sector. Last point, I know you're pressed for time, the Canadian auto parts sector, so that it can remain competitive with the United States. We're focused on maximizing Canadian jobs, maximizing the harm in the U.S., so that we get
maximizing
where we need
the harm in the U.S.
Then Mr.
Can
Singh.
someone clip that?
Mr. Carney, you claim that you want our country to respond with strength, but after the last decade, half of which time you've been Justin Trudeau's economic advisor,
There you go.
our economy is weaker than ever before. It's been the worst growth in the G7. We've lost $500 billion of investment south of the border. You supported blocking pipelines in Canada that gave Donald Trump and the US a near monopoly over our energy. And now you want to keep in place Bill C-69, the liberal no new development law that blocks us from shipping our resources overseas. How could you possibly think it's a good idea to give the Americans a continued monopoly on our energy projects when you have seen how much these liberal policies have weakened our country over the last decade?
Let Mr. Carney respond, and then Mr. Singh.
Sure.
If I may, yes. So let's go to my record. My record is a month long as Prime Minister.
Bullshit.
And this goes to the heart of coming to the Americans with strength, but doing the right thing for Canada. Within the first week as Prime Minister,
A month. No, it's not
I
a month.
sat down
It's
with
5
all
years,
the
you liar.
premiers of the provinces and territories, as well as the leaders of the Indigenous peoples. Got an agreement with all the provinces and territories, doesn't happen very often, got an agreement for them to have one Canadian economy instead of 13, first point. Secondly, to commit the federal government to do its part by Canada Day, so free trade in Canada by Canada Day. Thirdly, the federal government to commit with respect to project reviews.
The question was about
Sorry,
pipelines.
I'm getting to it. Thirdly, one project, one review, and relying
That's not
on
possible
provincial.
under
Yes, it is
C-69.
possible under. It is possible on our system.
No,
it
it's
is
not.
the
It's
impact
banned
assessment.
under C-69.
It is agreed on under the impact assessment framework, and we have a cooperation agreement with British Columbia already. We're looking forward to them with the other provinces. We will move
Yes,
forward.
no,
to-
I'll
Gotta let
jump in
okay,
on this.
Mr.
Just
Singh's turn, please.
The
Of course,
anti-development
of
law.
course, we agree around having a strategic response to the United States. But what I'm concerned about is what we're doing here in Canada. We are already seeing threats to our country in that just the threats alone of the tariffs have meant Canadians have lost their jobs. The threats of the tariffs that are in place right now, the impact of those tariffs is that we've lost jobs in steel, aluminum, and the auto sector. People are already losing their jobs. And while Mr. Carney, you had time, as you mentioned, not very long time, but as Prime Minister,
5
you
years.
showed us your priorities. The first thing you did
You went to
is
Europe.
you had traveled, you made a tax cut for millionaires, which was reversing on the capital gains. So you gave a tax cut to millionaires, but you didn't have time to increase the amount that workers get on EI. Right now, workers who are struggling and wondering, what am I going to do if I lose my job? Workers who've lost their job are saying, how do I pay my bills when EI only covers half of a worker's salary? Maybe 40 years ago that would have worked, but right now most workers are spending their entire salary just to pay the bills, to pay their mortgage and their rent, and to put food on the table. So EI is not good enough, and it shows Canadians that you didn't make it a priority
EI,
to
they're talking
protect
about- how would you
those
talk about
that are
employment,
impacted
not
by these
employment
tariffs,
insurance?
that are threatened because their jobs are lost.
We have not heard from Monsieur Blanchet yet in this
I've
segment,
got
so
nothing
please.
to add.
Mr. Carney, you are becoming a real Canadian leader, saying one thing in French and another one in English. You
Booyah!
said in British Columbia in February that you would force oil and gas through pipelines through Quebec, either we wanted it or not. You would use emergency powers in order to do so. And 2 days later in Montreal, you said that you would never do that without the approval of Quebec. What's the point of using emergency powers if you do have the agreement of Quebec? However, I do agree with you. It's important to be very strong in front of Mr. Trump. However, I would keep the dollar for dollar policy. Don't be weak in front of Mr. Trump. And those counter tariffs have to be targeted. You have put out already $2 billion for Ontario auto industry, car industry, and the lumberwood industry in Quebec has already paid to United States $2 billion, and you have not raised one finger in order to help us.
Let's get from Mr. Poliev and then a response from Mr. Carney.
Well, Mr. Carney refused to answer the question about pipelines. Just the other day, he said that he doesn't necessarily think we need to build pipelines. Let me tell you what that means. Right now, the Americans get 97% of our oil, 100% of our natural gas exports at big discounts. We have to send Canadian oil from Western Canada through the States just to get it back to Quebec because we don't have a pipeline. And now there's this law, liberal law C-69, which effectively bans pipelines. The 14 biggest energy and resource companies say it has to go if we're ever going to build another project. And I asked Mr. Carney, why he would keep in place this anti-pipeline law that effectively empowers Donald Trump to have a total monopoly on our single biggest export. Why would you not repeal this liberal law? Isn't it because you are exactly in the same line as Justin Trudeau and the rest of the Liberal team that is now making up your cabinet?
He's investing in foreign
let me pick up a couple of points that have been made. The first thing I did as Prime Minister was to cut the carbon tax.
Your tax.
That's the first thing. Second thing is made a commitment that all proceeds from our tariffs will go to workers and those companies most affected. There were several points raised.
Nothing so far.
If I may, Mr. Steve, if I may address, I'm trying to do it quickly because several points raised. All proceeds go to workers and the firms most effective, and those proceeds are considerable. Third thing, I'm interested in solutions. I'm interested in getting energy infrastructure built. That means pipelines, that means carbon capture, storage, that means electricity grids. And here's how you do it. And we've already moved in the first month. Cooperation agreements with the provinces. Guess what? We are a federation. You need to cooperate with Quebec. You need to cooperate with the provinces. You need to get First Nations and Indigenous people buy-in. You can do that through the one project, one review window that we put in place at that first ministers' meeting, as well as, if necessary, using emergency powers to fulfill the federal responsibility, but not the unique.
Mr. Poilievre, you want to come back on that?
What you're saying, Mr. Carney, with respect, is a total contradiction. The No New Development Law, C-69, guarantees there will not be one-stop shop because it requires the Government of Canada to actually duplicate
Mr. Poilievre is saying is that have no rules,
project.
have no regulation,
have one
have no
Shut up,
controls
Mr.
over any energy.
We just got to let him finish.
Nobody wants to hear from you.
Let's just let him finish his sentence.
Yeah.
That is not true. In fact, Mr. Singh, the reality is we should have strong rules enforced once. We shouldn't have multiple levels of referral that takes now 17 years to get a major project approved in this country. That is why in the last 10 years we've had the worst economic growth in the entire G7. We cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a change, and the Conservative plan for a change will include repealing the anti-pipeline law so we can get our energy to markets other than the United States.
Mr. Singh, then Mr. Carney.
While these two compete about who's more pro-pipeline, I think what we need to do is, it's clear. The Liberals bought a pipeline. They built a pipeline. I don't know what Pierre is complaining about. That's what they did. I think what we need to do, if we're talking about energy in our country, we need to build an east-west grid. Let's use our power as a nation to build a national project that creates good jobs, that strengthens us for the future, where we connect the low-cost energy from jurisdictions and provinces across this beautiful land and have low-cost energy for businesses, for people, so we can build a stronger economy. That's the energy of the future that we need.
Mr. Carney.
3 quick points. First, the pipeline built, yes, TMX built. That's why oil exports up 50% over the course of the last few years. Secondly,
I don't think
Mr. Singh is absolutely right about the east-west grid interconnections, which is part of the energy corridor. Huge opportunities for this country. We have to be able to do more than one thing. Third point, fundamental point. We can give ourselves far more than Donald Trump can ever take away. If we have one Canadian economy, not 13, and if we just look at that agreement we got with the provinces, look at what Ontario and Nova Scotia have just announced in terms of their steps towards this. This is within our grasp.
Monsieur Blanchet, what should we be prepared to concede in our negotiations with the United States?
I want to be back to something that Mr. Carney said. You can't do something and the opposite, and you can't fill people's mind with nonsense. Quebec has, by law, its own environmental review institution, and you cannot, through a federal decision, even through a Quebec government decision, go over the BAP, as we call it. If the BAP says no,
just say
it's no.
I know.
Good.
I know.
Let's
but this
keep
is
that in mind.
This is the point. This is, if I may, this is the point. The federal government can do the following, which is to take the decision to abide by the decision of the Quebec BAP. That is within the federal government's power. That is known as cooperative federalism. That's what we need to do.
And do you understand one other point fast?
This is what we need. This is what we need to do in a crisis.
We have Moïse and then Mr. Poilievre.
Yeah. The building of those pipelines will take at least 10 to 14 years. Mr. Trump will be 90 years old, not president no more,
might-
and somebody,
might
somebody,
try.
of course, less terrible will be there before you can even dream of having oil through this pipeline of yours.
We're less than a minute to go. Mr. Polyev, I promised you next.
Listen, after the last 10 years of liberals blocking pipelines and killing jobs,
Sounds wild when you
we
say that.
actually
Sounds
we
like-
actually need to get things
that makes
done.
sense.
We need a change.
Can the
And our
moderator tell
conservative
Jagmeet
plan
to
for
shut his
change
mouth?
will repeal the No New Pipelines law. It will create
This is the Canadian debate,
one-stop
not
shop,
the American
set up
one. Everybody's too
ready,
polite.
shovel-ready zones with pre-permitting so
Sure,
that we
you
can
too.
approve LNG liquefaction export plants, mines, pipelines, nuclear plants, and also
said no to
hydroelectric dams so that we can generate the power we need to be strong, self-reliant, and stand on our own 2
Can I-
feet for a change.
Last quick word to Mr. Carney.
Okay, quick word. Bringing it back to what we were talking about, which is tariffs, the threats to Canada, how to negotiate. We need these options. We need these options to build domestically, to build one Canadian economy. We need to act. We need to diversify our trade partners.
And that is
will
our
give us
time in
strength
this
to
segment.
the US.
That is our time. Okay, you know my job tonight. I got to be the heavy guy here every now and then, making sure everybody comes to time.
We've
And
got
I'm keeping an
credits
eye
in the
as
bank.
well on making sure that everybody gets rough justice over here. That concludes our first section and our first debate. Up next, affordability and the cost of living.
By the way, apparently
Our goal
they've
is to
specified
double the pace
immigration
of
is
housing
not on the menu
construction.
tonight.
It will lower your bills, build homes you can actually afford.
Il faudra parler des entreprises du Québec, des travailleurs du Québec, des aînés du Québec.
A big, powerful bring it home tax cut on work, investment, energy, and home building.
Okay, leaders, same idea, one-on-one questions followed by open debate format. And Mr. Polyev, you get the first question this time. Many provinces, including some provinces with conservative governments, have ambitious housing targets, none of which have been met. Why do you think your housing plan will be any different?
Let me start by talking to the young people of the nation and those who are aspiring to home ownership. You know, it was only 10 years ago you could buy an average house for $450,000. But in the last lost Liberal decade, housing costs have doubled, rising faster than in any country in the G7. And so now our youth cannot afford a home, and our seniors are worried about being evicted. We can't afford a fourth Liberal term of rising housing costs. We need a change. And our Conservative plan for change will, 1, axe the federal sales tax on new homes. 2, incentivize municipalities to cut their construction taxes to bring houses down in cost by $100,000. 3, sell off federal land for homes. And 4, train up 350,000 young trades workers who can help build those homes. Because you deserve a home, and we're going to make it happen for a change.
Also on the issue of affordability, Mr. Singh, you get the next question. How do you bring down grocery prices in the midst of a trade war?
I appreciate the question. This is a big concern. When I talk to Canadians, they tell me they're really feeling squeezed from the cost of living. That's one of the top things that people tell me about. People are saying, I can't afford to buy groceries. Every time I go to the grocery store, it's just ongoing.
And he
worry
goes by himself. He buys his
this
own groceries.
Feeling of anxiety that can I actually afford the things that my family needs? On top of that, people are worried about the cost of homes. I think those are the two biggest things I hear. So we can do things about this. Other countries have taken concrete steps. We can put in a price cap on food essentials.
Price
France has
cap
done
on
it.
food?
Greece has done it. It's
Kamala
great
Harris
success. It's
3.0.
brought down the cost of food significantly in both those jurisdictions. We can also ban corporate landlords from buying up the affordable homes to keep homes that are affordable. We can make things better for Canadians, but it requires having the courage to take on the powerful corporations that are ripping you off, that are price gouging you. And we know that price gouging is one of the major reasons why food prices are going up.
That's
You're never gonna hear Pierre
absolutely
Poilievre
wrong. You're a
or Mr.
big,
Carney talk
stupid
about
idiot,
the
Jagmeet.
fact that these are the
Thank
corporations
Thank you,
ripping you
Mr.
off.
Singh. That's
I
time. Mr. Blanchet, I want to ask you about old age security, which will soon cost this country $100 billion annually. We understand you would like to expand it. How would you pay for that?
We would want it to be just for everybody because the Liberals have created a discrimination against elders which are 65 to 75 years old,
They
having
haven't
10%
created
less
discrimination. They'll
income
kill them
from the federal
indiscriminately.
government
Maids,
than
baby.
those who are over 75. But the best way to do it is to have everybody pay its fair share in terms of tax, which means that one should not be entitled to hide money in fiscal paradise in order not to pay him or his clients
Why
or
is
friends
it that Blanchette
not
is
to
making
pay
these
billions
points
of
and not
dollars
Pierre?
in taxes that could be used to help the situation of elders? Those are things which are supposed to be applied to everybody. There are a lot of questions to be answered about that. Other ways to do it is to reduce the pressure on housing price, to make sure that the whole budget of elders and families and workers can afford houses which have increased dramatically in price.
Merci, Monsieur Blanchet. That's time for this one. Mr. Carney, I want to ask you about housing, which over the past decade has gone from a problem to a crisis while the Liberals were in power. Is your
I've only been
on
Prime
getting
Minister
homes
for 1
built
month.
any different from your predecessors, and how?
I remind you,
this is one of the reasons why I entered this contest, because of the housing crisis, the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis, and the Trump crisis.
Your
to help,
parties and the
to
same
help
people.
fix it.
Same
and
people
I would look.
still in
the
charge.
housing approach is fundamentally different because we need a fundamentally different approach. We need to build housing at a rate that we haven't seen since the end of the Second World War. We do need a fundamentally different approach. And with the fundamentally different approach, we can build an entirely new industry. So the question is how? Now, Mr. Poilievre and I agree on some things. Okay, I agree as well on reducing the tax on first-time home purchases as a way to buy. But I am focused on increasing the supply of homes and doing that in a way that uses Canadian technology and modular prefabricated housing, that uses Canadian lumber,
he's talking about living
including in reinforced timber, houses, and uses Canadian workers. And in all respects, we're scaling up to double the rate of home building.
We're
Thank you,
scaling up
Mr.
10
Carney.
years.
That's time. We now move to open forum here. And Mr. Singh, you
Yeah,
get the first comment.
crush him.
Many of you have pledged to cut the GST on many aspects of buying a home. And Mr. Singh, I want to ask you, would you cut the GST on anything else in order to make life more affordable?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm the only one on this stage that fought to give people a GST holiday. Interestingly, while the GST holiday helps working class folks, middle class folks by taking off the GST off essentials, the Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre voted against that. They opposed the idea of giving people, actual folks that need help, a tax break, and would rather give millionaires a tax break, which shows you whose side he's on, which is not surprising. But what is surprising is that Mr. Carney also said that giving people a break on their GST is a bad idea. Mr. Carney, why do you think giving a tax break to capital gains folks that earn more than $1 million is a good idea, but helping a family afford their groceries, helping people afford their bills for their internet, their cell phone, their home heating, giving them relief to take the GST off those is a bad idea, but giving a tax break to people who really only earn over more than $1.4 million, that's somehow a good idea.
Okay, you went after
that's your numbers.
You went after Mr. Poilievre first, so I'm going to give him the first shot to respond.
Well, Mr. Carney, the reality is that housing costs doubled under the Liberal government, while Justin Trudeau made exactly the same promises that you are now repeating today. He promised that he would double home building. In fact, home building went down. He promised that he'd reduce the cost. In fact, it went up. And here we are. Mark Carney is asking for a fourth Liberal term, repeating the exact same Liberal promises that priced you out of a house. Just a few weeks ago, before the election, the Liberals voted against taking the GST off new homes, and they have continued to build up bureaucracies that block construction. We need a change so that you can afford a home. And our change will be, again, to axe the sales tax on new homes, incentivize municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development costs, train up 350,000 young people who can be in the trades to build those homes and sell off the land that is going to be needed in order to build homes. That is a real plan for you to own a home and afford your life for a change.
Mr. Carney, they're coming at you from both sides. What do you say?
Okay. I know it may be difficult,
one of
Mr.
the words that he's
Poilievre.
supposed to
You
say
spent
tonight?
years running against Justin Trudeau and the carbon tax, and they're both gone. Okay, they're both gone. And we're
doing
we're
a
in
pretty
a
good
new
impersonation
and we're
of him with the
in
same
a
policies tonight.
very different. Look, I'm a very different person from Justin Trudeau. Focus is on results.
Were you his
and
economic
so how
advisor?
to drive
There you
results
go. So
in
ask
the
it again,
housing
Pierre. I don't think
market.
he heard you.
You've got to change the model of building. You've got
Were
to
you his
increase
economic
the financing for housing developers. $25 billion on the table for those housing developers. $10 billion for deeply affordable homes. Cutting development charges in half, lowering the cost of the building of those homes by 20%. and lowering the emissions and the run costs of those homes by another 20%. This is how you drive affordability. This is how you bring young people back into the housing
You got
market.
Monsieur Blanchet and then Mr. Singh.
You claim to be very different from Mr. Trudeau. Now, the point is to show that you are any better than Mr. Trudeau. You claim to have a lot of experience in many things, and you know things. Last time we had somebody saying that they knew things, it was the senators, and they killed the law that protected supply management because they knew better than us and were elected by nobody, exactly like you are today. You say that you are a great crisis manager. Which one? I heard of nothing. As far as I know, Brexit happened, even if you were against it. You say you are a great negotiator. What have you negotiated but fiscal paradises in Bermudas or Cayman Islands? You have to prove something, and you have to reveal what you own in those companies if you want people to believe you.
Mr. Singh, you wanted to.
Yes, returning to the topic of housing. Now, it's very important. Obviously, we need to build homes that people can afford. Mr. Poilievre had the opportunity to show us what he could do. He was the Minister of Housing
he
under
built 6 houses.
Stephen Harper.
Say it.
And during that time,
6
guess
houses.
how many homes he built?
6.
He built 6 homes.
Bullshit.
During that entire time.
Jagmeet
This
cannot
is not
do
something
anything
you can
but
trust
lie.
to build homes. He built
200,000.
6 homes.
200,000.
And this has been confirmed again and again. He built 6 homes. That's it. Now, the problem, though, with Mr. Carney is while he's laid out a plan, the problem is that when he was the chair of Brookfield Investments, this is a company that made a strategic decision to buy up affordable homes in cities like Toronto, where people were paying a decent rent. And they purposely bought those homes, kicked out the tenants, and jacked up the rents. That is not someone you can trust, sadly, to deal with the housing crisis when Mr. Carney, you profited off of it.
We're going to get responses here. Mr. Poilievre first, Mr. Carney second.
First of all, Mr. Singh,
hold this up to remind you.
the Toronto
6 right
Star, the Toronto Star debunked your falsehoods.
No, it was 6
on that.
homes, and
I
that's the
appreciate
fact.
neither Liberals or NDP are very good with math, but in that
You're
year, the
clearly
year I
you
was
can
the
count up to
minister, if I
6,
could,
which is great.
the year I
Mr.
was
Singh, let's let him answer.
in the year I
It's not
was
high enough, though.
the year I was minister, we had 200,000 homes built, and guess what the average price of a home was at the time? $450,000.
And guess what happened
And
at the end of the conservative reign?
one bedrooms
It
rented
doubled.
out for $900. And that since that time, housing costs have actually doubled under the Liberals.
They doubled
and
on
now
the
we have
Conservatives, too.
now we have Mr. Carney making tens of billions of dollars of spending promises that
They
will
doubled under
ultimately
you as well.
continue to build bureaucracy. We don't need more bureaucracy in Ottawa. We tried that for 10 Liberal years, Mr. Carney. What we need is to build homes in communities.
Certainly
and
don't
that
need
means
Conservatives.
axing taxes on home building and getting the government out of the way so that builders can actually build.
I think,
Mr. Carney,
can I pick
you
up-
are on housing. We need
Can
a
I-
change, and you, sir, are not a change.
Mark Carney.
I'm going to pick up on, I thought that answer was quite revealing. The first thing is that it's an attitude towards housing that absolutely ignores affordable housing, deeply affordable housing, issues with vulnerable people, ignores the rental market, ignores all other aspects of it. So the 6 are the relevant. Mr. Singh is absolutely right. The 6 are the relevant.
200,000.
The 200,000 are a different part of the housing market. There are many Canadians. There are many Canadians at different income levels. The second thing it reveals is a misunderstanding, I'll be polite, of how the government's balance sheet can catalyze enormous private investment. And that is what we need to do to solve the housing crisis. It happens to be what we need to do as a whole to address the economic crisis that's been forced on us by President Trump.
Mr. Blanchet?
Yeah. You have spoken much more than I have, so I won't ask a question. I will make a statement instead. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying that you cannot do what you pretend that you are able to do. We just have no proof so far. I'm saying quite clearly that you cannot be entitled to do it alone. You cannot be entitled to hold all the power in your 2 hands. You cannot go out there and fix things for Canada and Quebec without being seriously checked by serious people. You cannot go out there and speak for Quebec without Quebec having its own strong voice to protect itself and to promote its different economy. So if you want to collaborate, let's say right now that whatever happens, even if minority government happens, you will be a partner with the different Quebec economy and identity, which you have been not interested in for the economic part and not respectful for the identity.
Let me get Mr. Singh in at this point. Can you tell us what's the first thing you would do to make life more affordable for Canadians?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do.
Medical
and I've laid out
assistance
some of
in
those
dying
things. I
people.
think fundamentally, I'm the only person on stage that not only fought for real relief for people in terms of affordability, I'm the only one that fought for pharmacare that actually makes life more affordable by giving people medication coverage, dental care that gives people more affordability by letting them access their services if you're a senior and a kid. I fought for childcare to make sure people could afford childcare. All measures that Mr. Poilievre voted against, all measures that Mr. Blanchet voted against. So if you want someone that's going to fight for you in Ottawa to actually make life more affordable, you can't entrust all the power to Mr. Carney. He doesn't have a track record of making life more affordable for people, but we do. So vote for a New Democrat, and we'll continue this work
Nobody's
to make
voting
life
New
more
Democrat.
affordable for you. While the Conservatives and the Bloc have voted against those measures to make life affordable, because that's not who they care about, New Democrats are in it for you.
Pierre Poilievre.
The number one expense for families today is taxes, more than they spend on food, clothing, and shelter combined. This after 10 years of Liberal tax increases. We can't afford a fourth term of high Liberal taxes. That's why Conservatives have a plan for change. And that plan
Your plan
includes
voted
cutting
against every measure to help people out.
Cutting income taxes by 15% for the average worker and seniors, saving a working couple up to $2,000, rewarding hard work again. Because
How much do you
hard
think
work
childcare
is
costs?
actually being
Dental care
punished.
costs.
Is actually being punished because of the very high taxes. Now, the Liberals promised 10 years ago they would lower them. They actually raised taxes on 9 out of 10 Canadians. We need a change in this country because your hard work should once again pay off with a powerful paycheck that buys you an affordable home
So you want to save
on a
people
safe
$2,000,
street, and that's what we will deliver.
You want to save people $2,000, but cut their dental care,
That's
which
false.
is thousands of dollars.
False.
Cut their child care, which is thousands of dollars. Cut pharmacare coverage, which is thousands of dollars.
False.
That's not a very good math deal right there. You're going to save people $2,000, but cost them tens of thousands of dollars. That's why you cannot afford Conservatives, and you certainly can't trust the Liberals
Mark
on their
Carney's
own.
turn.
You need New Democrats.
Can't
Mark
trust
Carney.
the Liberals.
I'm going to reinforce that point, and then I'll respond to Mr. Blanchet. Childcare in this country, $3,000 to $10,000 a year for a family, depending on where you live.
Province, jurisdiction.
Depending on where you live, that's what's being saved there. $800 per trip to the dentist. We have expanded dental care
Province,
to 8
jurisdiction.
million Canadians.
Because we
8
forced
million Canadians.
Because New Democrats are there.
Pharmacare. These are fundamental issues for affordability. We're talking about affordability and taking them off in order.
That's why you need New Democrats.
That's
Quebec,
not what I've said.
and
I
in
will be
terms
cutting
of
income taxes
working with Quebec,
for Canadians.
yes, absolutely. Throughout the short time I've been Prime Minister, working directly with the Premier of Quebec, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, our Minister of Finance are from Quebec. Quebec and Quebec issues, whether it's
Why
supply
haven't you answered
management,
Mr.
language,
Legault's letter? He asked 5 things in the letter. He reduced his expectations.
we're talking about
and you did not even answer him. And tonight, you are so much in love with Quebec.
Steve, the question that Canadians have to ask.
Why vote for
whether-
Conservatives?
why-
We're going to save you
why-
$2,000.
He's got the
cost you
Mr.
tens of
Singh.
thousands.
Mr. Singh, sorry, he has the floor. Come on.
Jagmeet really has to
The
shut his
question you
mouth.
have to ask is, after a decade of Liberal promises, can you afford food? Is your housing more affordable than it used to be? What is your cost of living like compared to what it was a decade ago? And are you prepared to elect the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal staffers all over again for a fourth term? Mr. Carney, Justin Trudeau's staffers are actually here with you at this debate in Montreal, writing the talking points that you are regurgitating into the microphone. How can we possibly believe that
That's
you are
painful.
any
Oh, wow.
different
That's painful.
than the previous
Someone
10
might
years
wanna
of
clip
Liberal
that.
government?
5 seconds left in this segment for you to respond to that.
No.
I do my own talking points. Thank you very much. The
Fact check false.
biggest risk we have to affordability, the biggest risk we have to this economy is Donald Trump. So first and foremost, we've got to get that right. Secondly, we need to do it in a way that brings everyone along together. That means preserving pharmacare, dental care, child care, reinforcing health care, spending our whole social safety.
Intrusion in
The clock is
Quebec
on-
jurisdiction
the-
over and again. I like
the
if
clock is
we're
on
any
zero.
better than we are.
The clock
Is
is
there
on zero.
one thing Canadians can do that Quebecers cannot do? You are doing intrusions in our jurisdiction with our money, pretending you are better. And most of the time, you try to copy what we did with our own money against us. What's that as a policy? Don't you have your own things to care about?
That really is time for this segment. I wanted to be polite and let everybody finish their
But
points,
I'm
but
far
we
behind,
got to move
so
on.
I took the liberty.
Thank you. Okay, that ends section 2. Up next, public safety and security.
Fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong.
Keep crime, drugs, stolen cars, and other illegal substances out of our country.
We're going to invest in our borders, and that means hiring more border officers.
Resources are in short supply, not enough staff. This is not the nice way to treat people who come to our border.
Okay, same format, one-on-one questions and then open debate. Monsieur Blanchet, you get to go first in this one. Public safety and security. For a lot of people, that means the fentanyl crisis. I'd like to know what you could contribute to ending that crisis in this country.
The fentanyl crisis is a very serious issue, which is a bit less important in Quebec than it is in British Columbia. I think the whole border thing is the real issue. Immigration is a very important issue for Quebecers. Immigration has to be dealt with in an orderly fashion. Our borders are not dealt with in an orderly fashion. The rules are not respected. The rules are unclear. Some rules even invite people to hide for 2 weeks illegally before coming out. Some things has to be done. The situation of one person asking for asylum may take as much as 4 years without us reducing the number in order to deal with them in a human way. The services for every citizen in Quebec are being reduced because we cannot afford the fact that we are receiving much, much more people in Quebec from this specific type of immigration than we can afford, and we cannot teach them French.
That's time, Monsieur Blanchet. We can, of course, return to the immigration issue during open debate, should you choose to. Mr. Carney, question for you. The Liberal gun buyback policy, not considered a success by many people. Reviving it is in your platform.
Yeah.
Why would it work this time?
Yeah, I think, well, what we've seen with that policy is some success at the commercial level, but not at the individual level, because it hasn't been, in my opinion, it hasn't been organized properly, and it needs to be organized properly. And instructed the Minister of National Security and Public Safety in order to do that. So part of this is a different focus of government, a focus on results, a focus on clear milestones in the short term. Let me make a broader point, though, on gun, which is that we have a problem with guns coming over borders, which is why we've tightened our borders. We have an issue, though, with a gun industry that is continually coming up with new forms of assault rifles, mass killing machines. We banned over 2,000 of these. Every single time there has been a vote in the House of Commons on gun control, Mr. Poilievre has voted against it. You can't be tough on crime unless you're tough on guns.
Mr. Poilievre, you can come back on that in the open debate if you want to, but my question for you in this segment is, Indigenous people are statistically overrepresented in our correction system. Are you concerned that your tough on crime platform will make that worse?
I'm concerned that Indigenous people are disproportionately the victims of crime. I give you the example of a wonderful group of Indigenous people who came under attack in Saskatchewan, and many of them were murdered. Killer was out of jail after 60 prior convictions. This is the result of 10 years of liberal laws that allow the same offenders to be released dozens and dozens of times, even when it's known they are a danger. We can't risk a fourth liberal term of soft on crime policies. We need a change. And the Conservative plan for change will bring in a 3 strikes you're out law. 3 convictions for serious crimes, you go to jail for at least 10 years, maybe for life, no chance of parole or bail. We will bring in life sentences for traffickers of fentanyl, human beings, and guns. And we will secure our borders to keep the illegal guns
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. That's time. Mr. Singh, your question is about the RCMP, because you've got RCMP reform in your platform. What, in your view, is the problem with the RCMP?
Well, some of the basis for this is the concern that's been raised in more rural communities and northern communities that there have been some serious concerns about violence or inappropriate use of force when it comes to the execution of their duties. We want to make sure that we've got a top-tier police force that provides security and safety to those communities in a way that's sensitive and understanding of the communities they're serving. I also think what's very important is for Indigenous communities, Indigenous policing. This is an area of deep concern. I think everyone in our country should be safe. You should be able to be safe at home, safe when you go to work, safe if you take public transit, safe for your kids to be able to play in the local playground. And that's something I'm committed to. And the other area that I'm focused on when it comes to public safety is making sure we prevent crime before it happens. And that's why we want to see increased investments in our border security. We saw under the Conservatives, they cut 1,100 border officers in one day. So that prevented our ability to keep our borders safe. That stops those materials from
Mr.
coming
Singh,
into the
that's
country.
time. Not sure it was about the RCMP, but maybe we can get back to that during the open debate segment, which we go to right now. And Mr. Poilievre, you get the first word on this one. And it sort of dovetails on the last answer you gave, which is you have pledged to be the first prime minister in this country to use the notwithstanding clause, setting aside charter rights of, as you call them, multiple murderers. Why do you think that's necessary?
To be clear, I want to uphold the charter rights of Canadians under Section 7 to life, liberty, and security
What
of
about
the
the other
person.
charter rights, Pierre?
Right now,
Maybe you should mention
that
those.
right is violated by multiple murderers who are given discounts. The case in question was a gentleman who went into a mosque and shot dead 6 innocent worshipers. He got, according to this ruling, only one 25-year sentence, meaning he can be out in his 50s. He only serves 4 years for every murder that he carried out. That is outrageous. And I will use the constitutional powers that are created for this purpose to ensure that mass murderers stay in maximum security penitentiary for life. They will only come out in a box. We will also pass tough new laws that prevent repeat offenders from getting out. If you commit 3 offenses under the 3 strikes law I propose, you will not be allowed out of jail until you prove that you are drug-free, that you are behaved perfectly, and that you've learned an employable skill, and you've served a 10-year sentence. We cannot allow liberal crime and chaos to go on terrorizing our communities. What we need is a real plan for change so that we can bring back the safety and the security that Canadians used to take for granted.
Let me get Mr. Carney to respond to that. Do you think that's an appropriate use of the notwithstanding clause of the Charter?
I think that the one of the core responsibilities of the federal government, Prime Minister, is to defend the fundamental rights and liberties of Canadians. And those fundamental rights and liberties of Canadians are outlined in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is 43 years old literally today. I think it's a very dangerous slope to override judgments of the Supreme Court of Canada.
That's
in
what
fact, the Charter of
the
Rights and
notwithstanding
Freedoms
clause is for.
exists to protect Canadians from people like us on the stage, politicians who may use their power to override fundamental rights. And the issue in using by the federal government, I'll stop here,
please,
is not where you start.
It's where you stop.
Where will you stop?
Mr. Poilievre, I should get Mr. Poilievre on that. Is it a slippery slope if you use it in this case?
I must say, I would be quite interested too, because Mr. Carney said that he didn't want us to use the notwithstanding clause before adopting a law. And yesterday he said that he felt that it was wrong to use the notwithstanding clause after a law is adopted. So if we cannot use it before and we cannot use it after, it means that Mr. Carney believes that we should never use it. But it is very important. And the Ford case made it clear. The Constitution says how it should be used, but never how or what we will do with it, because it's the prerogative of the provinces. So do you want the Supreme Court to overrule another judgment of the same Supreme Court because you don't like it? Because that would be being the hell of a politician as you define them.
Well, let me just start by saying, first of all, thank you. I just started by saying, let's not let Mr. Poilievre get away with making this ludicrous claim that anyone on this stage thinks that violent crime should get a less severe penalty. Obviously, that is not a special position
Did he
he's taking.
say that?
Everyone agrees that horrible crimes should have horrible sentences. Judges are equipped to do that, so don't let Mr. Poilievre's rhetoric confuse people. Obviously, everyone agrees that if someone does something horrible, they should pay a horrible price for it. There should be appropriate sentence that's put in place by a judge. But what I'm concerned about is all of what Mr. Poilievre is talking about is after the fact. Now, there's heinous things that happen, and there needs to be severe penalties put in place. But we also need to keep communities safe. And that's what my focus is. Well, how do we stop crime before it happens? Much of the violent crime that's committed is committed by illegal handguns and firearms that come across the border. Now, Mr. Poilievre has admitted that as well, that it is illegal handguns and illegal weapons that are used in violent crime. So our plan is, let's stop those illegal weapons getting into our country in the first place. And the way we do that is by having stronger border security officers and having more people on the border. Mr. Pierre Poilievre, when he was in power in the Conservatives, they cut the number of border officers. They reduced the number, weakening our borders.
Keeping an eye on time
can't
here.
trust them
Let's
to
get
do
back
these
to
type of
Mr.
things.
Poilievre on the issue of whether, in using the notwithstanding clause under these circumstances, would be a kind of a slippery slope and encourage politicians to use it more.
No, we will use it to protect the charter rights of law-abiding Canadians. I'm interested in the rights of victims. Mr. Carney seems to be very interested in the rights of criminals. He says that it's dangerous for me to ensure that mass murderers stay behind bars for life. You know what's dangerous? Turning them loose on our streets. I don't think you appreciate, sir, the chaos that is unfolding in communities. In Toronto right now, the police have been forced to tell people to just let the thief steal the car. When they break into the house, just take the keys. Just let them take the keys so that you don't get hurt. People are living in terror in many of our communities precisely because of the catch and release bail law, C-75, which requires judges release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. Every single member of your Liberal caucus and your Liberal cabinet voted in favor of this bill, and they are all determined to keep it in place despite constant promises to the contrary. Mr. Carney, Canadians deserve to live in peace and security. That is the right that I'm fighting for a change.
I'm fighting for that as well. And let me be specific about two things that have been raised. The first is with respect to these issues of car theft, home invasion, and I'll use the GTA area where there has been sharp increase. How do you attack that? You attack it several ways.
How do you attack it? How did it happen?
You increase the criminal penalties for that.
How did it happen?
Particularly if you're part of a gang, particularly if you use a firearm.
And you will do that?
And we're doing so. We've committed to doing so. You put in place a reverse onus in terms of bail so that it has to be proven that there's not a risk, which we've also committed to. And then you go to what Mr. Singh was talking about, which is we have to reinforce our frontiers. That's why we're committing to an extra 1,000 Canada Border Service agents, an extra 1,000 RCMPs. That's why, as part of the broader fentanyl initiative, where we've added to the RCMP there, we've added drones, we're adding helicopters, we're adding surveillance, and we're going to the other end of the chain with respect to car theft, which is tightening security at the ports. This is what we need. In order to get results, you need to focus at both ends of the chains in federal government.
Singh.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about one of the issues that has come up is the idea of the public safety concerns around the overdose crisis and how this is devastating our communities. We're seeing so many lives being lost. In that, we know that one of the ways to address that is by investing in some of the solutions like mental health services and rehabilitation services. Services keep our communities safe, having access to those good services. Both Mr. Carney and Mr. Poilievre are proposing cutting government spending and cutting those services. That's not going to make our community safer. We need to see better investments in rehabilitation services, more investments in mental health. We need to respond to this serious crisis in our country with care and compassion. I've met with Moms Stop the Harm, an organization of moms that have lost their children to this opioid overdose crisis. They've literally had their children have died because of this. And they're saying, we need to do everything possible to save lives, to stop this death from happening. And I think we need to listen to those moms. And that's my commitment.
Mr. Blanchet.
Two things as rapidly as possible. First, we believe that we should act on crime gangs and organizations, defining them as we do for terrorist organization. We have to protect our kids from the violence of those gangs, from the drugs being sold by those gangs, from the guns and whatever else being stolen, sale, being by those gangs.
Sold?
And not stolen, being, you purchase a thing and selling, sold by those gangs. And we mostly have to protect our kids from being recruited by those gangs, becoming violent at 13 and 14 and 16 years old, because this is the real fear of parents like I am. This is a very dangerous situation. I want to come back to immigration because we said that we would come back to immigration. Do you remember the Century Initiative, a sad memory? Officially, they said that they had not considered Quebec difference. They had not considered Quebec language. They wanted Canada to be a 100 million people country by the end of the century. Mr. Barton told me himself that he had not even thought about the Quebec difference in that analysis. And one of his closest collaborators is now a close consider to Mr. Carney, which seems to be part also of that kind of project or ideology. So it is impossible for Canada to have all those people come into Canada. It is impossible for Quebec to receive all those people. And in Quebec, we have the language and values and secularity of the state issue, which is very important. So I say, pause. Let's do things properly. Let's receive migrants in an orderly fashion and successfully as a measure of respect for them also.
Mr. Poilievre, you wanted a word.
I speak to families all the time who are terrified by the scourge of drugs and illegal guns. And we know those guns are not Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle. So when the Liberals try to ban hunting rifles, they're really going after the wrong people. 90% of guns that come in that are used in crime are smuggled illegally over the porous, Liberal-run borders.
The border,
and that's why the
police,
border officers. It's not true, and that's why the police.
Cut the border officers.
The police
in the
actually,
facts.
if I could, the police actually endorsed me. The police in Barrie, in Peel, in Sault Ste. Marie have all endorsed me because they know that I will go after the gun smugglers and criminals with 2,000 extra frontline border guards that will stop the guns from coming in.
Now you want to hire
but unlike the Liberals and NDP, I will not ban hunting rifles. The Liberals want to protect. I want to protect Canadians from criminals. The Liberals want to protect turkeys from hunters. I think we know which one makes the
cut off his intervention, Mr. Carney. Then I got a question for each of you before this segment's out.
Cut off his flipping mic already. Jagmeet is an idiot.
We absolutely fully support hunting and rights of hunters and Indigenous Canadians. But I want to raise an issue, which is a serious issue. About safety. There are people. We're in Montreal, in Toronto, across this country, who fear going to their synagogue, fear going to their community center, fear taking their children, leaving their children in school, and this has to stop. This is it's totally unacceptable. So what we're proposing is to make it a criminal offense to threaten or to impede anyone from being near or going to their place of worship, their school, their community center. It pains me that when we have to do it, because this is not what we should be doing as Canadians, of course, but we will put that in place. And this is a fundamental issue with respect to
Let me get 10
anti-Semitism.
seconds from each of you before this segment's out on what you perceive to be the biggest security threat to Canada right now. 10 seconds each. Mr. Poilievre.
The physical security threat to our country is the rampant crime wave that is running out of control. After the last decade, we had a 116% increase in gun crime. We need to lock up the criminals.
I got to hold you to 10 seconds. Mr. Carney?
Well, we're in a security section. I think we didn't have a chance to talk about anything internationally. I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
China, you say?
Yeah.
Mr. Singh?
Biggest security threat, illegal guns and drugs coming across the border, and cuts to services that would make our public safety and security even worse.
Last word to Mr. Blanchet.
The fact that neither Quebec or Canada is able to protect itself and that we are still dependent and entirely dependent on Americans to protect us.
Okay, that is the end of that section. Gentlemen, up next, energy and climate.
Improving pipelines, getting things built, unleashing production.
We are unlocking major infrastructure projects, including in conventional energy, oil and gas.
We're speaking thousands of dollars a year for each family to pay for the damages of climate change.
We can absolutely build important projects like an east-west energy grid.
Energy and climate change. I know how much all of you love talking about pipelines, so here we go. Mr. Singh, to you first. Should Canada build new pipelines to get our oil and gas to market?
Well, it's not an approach I favor with public money. There's not any projects that are on the table, so it's not a specific project to look at. I favor, when it comes to the environment, building an east-west energy grid that connects low-cost energy and allows for families to reduce their electricity costs. But let's put this all in context.
Put it in context.
We're talking about what our energy solutions are in the context of a climate crisis. And we're not just talking about a climate crisis in the far future. We're living it right now. I remember I met a mom a couple of years ago before I had kids who told me she was worried about taking her kids out on some days because of the forest fires in BC. It meant that it was unsafe for kids to go outdoors. Fast forward to when I became a parent just a couple of years after that, and I literally worry about the same thing. The forest fires we saw a couple of years ago meant that many places that didn't see this before saw days where there was such smoke in the air that it was dangerous for kids. We've seen extreme weather, forest fires, heat domes, floods impacting us. We've got to do everything we can to
Thank you,
protect our
Mr.
future.
Singh. That's time. Mr. Poilievre, where does fighting climate change land on your list of priorities when it comes to expanding energy opportunities in this country?
It lands within our priorities of bringing home jobs while bringing down emissions around the world. Look, the reality is that if we push production out of our country to more polluting countries, it actually makes the problem worse. But that has been exactly the liberal approach
has done
with the anti-development law C-69,
corruption.
of
Get to Carney's
15
corruption.
LNG export plants over the last 10 years. We have seen more of those jobs go abroad. I want to bring them home. My plan will be to approve, for example, natural gas liquefaction and export. If we sent our gas to India, for example, to displace half of their demand for electricity, we could reduce emissions by 2.5 billion tons, which is 3 times the total emissions of Canada. That's the way we bring emissions down and jobs up. It's common sense, and now it's time to bring it home.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. The next question is for Mr. Carney. How would your government fast-track pipelines and mining projects while also following the Supreme Court decision that requires consent of Indigenous communities?
Well, I think the first thing, and this goes back a bit to where we started, which is recognizing that we are in a crisis. We need to act with maximum force, and having a process and a consultation, but a consultation with a purpose, which is to identify those projects, those investments of national interest that are really going to move the dial in terms of growth, jobs, energy security, while being consistent with long-term competitiveness, which necessarily means lower carbon. And so part of that process is ensuring that First Nations, Indigenous peoples, are there from the start. It also includes their ability to participate fully in those projects. And that's why, and I can tell, like, you've got to tell on when I've gone on too long, so I'll finish up. Which is, that's why we're doubling. Our proposal is to double the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program to $10 billion. What does that actually mean? It means an ability for them to invest equity in those projects and be full partners. Thank you.
My tell is my clock, and my clock is at 0, so that's how it goes. Monsieur Blanchet, do you still oppose pipeline construction in Quebec, even though a majority of Quebecers now apparently say they support it?
We will know about that when we have held the debate about that, which has not begun yet. We are just beginning it. First, we are hearing very creative numbers, and we are being fed nonsense. And we will be back to it in a few minutes. But energy, trade, commerce is from south to north or north to south. And it's true in Quebec also. In a little more than 3 years, Donald Trump won't be in office. And there will be not one more pipeline having been built once we get there. So let's be serious, responsible, and we will be back with the numbers. We don't want to pay in Quebec for such monstrosities, which will provide us with nothing.
We now move to open debate, and you all
let's go open debate.
will get a chance, or have had a chance, to get the first shot at this. And Monsieur Blanchet, it is your turn to get the first shot. Canada has a substantial supply of critical minerals, which are in high demand. Are you in favor of allowing these minerals to be mined?
Of course, it has to be done properly. Quebec has probably the most important clean phosphate reserves in North America. In Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, it is very important. It has to be exploited. This is the best way to use Paul Saguenay as an infrastructure that we need. We have lithium. Everybody needs lithium. Transportation has to be taken from oil to clean energy. This is what we want to be working on. It is part of the specifics of Quebec economy. So we are in favor of that, but we don't want to pay for the $30 billion which have been spent on oil and gas by the Liberals last year. It's $7 billion from Quebec. We don't want to pay for the $40 billion which have been spent by the Liberals on Trans Mountain. It's $9 billion from Quebec. Those are $16 billion of which not $1 has been
He's saying
spent
words that I
in
swear to you, I
Quebec
don't
to
understand
develop a lot more
how they're
power
stringing together.
and wealth for Quebecers
only
with
care about
our
Quebec.
own money.
Yeah,
We need to let the
that's the
leader
platform.
of the
We want
Liberals
Quebec well.
respond.
They
Well,
only
actually, I
want
was going to
Quebec
pick up
and only
on
want
the
separation.
enormous opportunity that exists in Quebec, exists in Ontario, exists in
everybody
the
else
north
from-
of
from
Canada,
other
really
provinces,
exists
like, this is-
across
yeah, I'm
this
sorry,
great
there are
nation in terms of critical metals
13
and minerals.
provinces?
We are
Territories?
have one of the biggest resources in this country. And it's not just an enormous economic opportunity, it is a strategic opportunity for Canada. So we have to make a decision, not just to develop it, but how do we develop it and who are our partners for it? Do we become more dependent on the United States, which is what they want? By the way, President Trump this week said he might put a tax on critical metals and minerals, just showing again
Yeah, but
the unreliable.
the job is not
if I may,
to-
and so the
The job is
discussions
to
that
negotiate,
So
not to have
if I may,
tariffs.
if I may
Let's
finish,
let him finish.
Let me finish. So the opportunity includes in Europe and includes in Asia as our partners. Last point. In order to get it done, we'll put in place a first and last mile fund. So these projects are connected to road and rail so they can go quickly to market. And we will have all of the other fast tracking measures in place that I talked about earlier in terms of capital, timing, approvals, so that we can move quickly, we can be stronger at home, better.
Always with the
Mr.
approval
Singh.
of
Yeah,
Quebec.
I
Mr.
think
Singh has
Always
the
with
floor.
the approval
we
of
should
Quebec.
absolutely take advantage of the fact that we've got incredible amounts of critical minerals in our country. And the way we do that is with any energy project or any project of this nature, make sure it's got the local community buy-in. It creates good jobs in communities, make sure we are meeting all our environmental needs, and we work with Indigenous partnership. And so I absolutely agree with that. I want to build on something Mr. Blanchet mentioned about the investments that this country has made. What I found very troubling is that the past number of years, the Liberal government record is one where we have spent the most subsidies compared to any other country in the G7 on subsidizing oil and gas. These are highly profitable companies.
You
I
voted
think that's
for
the
it.
wrong thing to do. We fought against it again and again.
No, you voted
and then
for
the
it
Liberals have
over
continued
and
to do
again.
it. And so my question really to Mr. Carney is, will you commit to ending oil and gas subsidies?
Yeah.
We should be using that to invest in people, not giving it to highly profitable oil and gas companies.
Yeah, we talked.
I promised Mr. Polyev
Sorry.
the next. We'll come back and get that question
I'll
answered.
answer.
Mr. Polyev.
Well, Mr. Carney, you point out that Donald Trump has a wrong-headed idea of putting a tax on our mines and our industry. And that is wrong. But so do you. You want to apply a massive industrial carbon tax on Canadian mines, Canadian steel mills, Canadian aluminum plants,
You want to let them just pollute as
Canadian
much as they
oil
want?
and gas.
Shut up, Jug.
And your
meat.
idea is to double the tax that Trump is applying by hitting them a second time. This will do nothing for the environment. It will actually ship our jobs south of the border,
Mr.
just
Pollier's plan is let them
like
pollute as much as they
President
want.
Trump
Not a good plan.
wants. My plan is to bring that production home here to Canada. For example, I will give a tax credit to low-emitting Canadian industry like Quebec's aluminum, for example, or British Columbia's natural gas, so that we not only bring home the production, but we do it below global average levels of emissions,
You
so
translate
that we
that.
actually help the environment while bringing
wants to
home
let
the
big
jobs
polluters
for our
pollute
people
We have to let him
at the
finish.
same time. That is a sensible, pragmatic approach that puts us in charge of our economic destiny so we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength for a change.
They
Mr.
want to let
Carney,
them
we've
pollute
got.
as
Hang
much
on a
as they
second.
want.
I want to give you a chance to speak to Mr. Singh's criticism about oil and gas subsidies and Mr. Poilievre's criticism about the industrial carbon tax.
Okay, I'm going to make 3 points. I'll make 4 if you want me to respond to that, but I want to make 3. The first is that I answered this question last night, but I think the puck had already dropped in the Canadians game, so not everyone heard it. Yes, end to oil and gas subsidies.
That's why you need new Democrats.
Secondly, I would have done it independently. Secondly, recognizing that the biggest component of that was the cost of building Keystone. Keystone, which is the pipeline which has helped to increase oil and gas oil exports rather by 50% in this country. That is an asset of the people of Canada. We own it. And the question of what to do it. So it's not a subsidy that has disappeared, it's actually an asset of Canada. The third point, though, in terms of where the oil and gas industry, particularly the oil industry, wants to and needs to go, which is to become low carbon in the production and transportation of oil. One of the big projects we need to move forward with is carbon capture and storage, the Pathways project, so that we have oil and gas that is competitive, not just today, 10 years from now and 20 years from now, as the world uses less. We want to have more market share. We need to do
Mr. Carney,
that. And my government will move that.
But by definition, a subsidy isn't when we buy a pipeline. I'm talking about subsidies that go to oil and gas companies. Independent, separate from the country, oil and gas companies. That's what I'm talking about.
The figure you quoted last night included the cost of the pipeline.
Do you want to address
billions
his
of
point?
dollars are spending. We got to stop spending.
Sorry, can we get you to address his point about the industrial carbon tax?
How much will the industrial carbon tax add to the price of a car?
So the first thing I want to say is I'm going to address the broader point. Broader point is the entire absence of a climate plan from Mr. Poilievre, which, by the way, is going to put our industry and our country at a disadvantage as we're looking for new trading partners. Guess what? Most people want to deepen our partnership in Europe, in Asia. Those countries care about whether or not you've made progress.
China's the biggest
Second
threat,
thing is,
but they want to deepen.
we're designing a program so that the big polluters pay Canadians at home for making responsible climate choices, for retrofitting their home, getting their emissions down, or improving otherwise. And that is smart climate policy. It's better for the big polluters, and it's better for Canadians.
Pierre Poilievre.
Mr. Carney didn't answer my question. I asked how much would an industrial carbon tax on Canadian steel add to the price of a car? He won't answer because he knows that it will be very expensive because there's lots of steel in cars. Now, Mr. Carney has temporarily
but you know the answer?
hid in the
you
carbon
answer
tax.
either. You're just throwing out
thousands of dollars. Thousands of
You're
dollars.
making it up, though. You don't
extra
know.
cost.
I do know the answer to that question. He's wrong.
When you add taxes to steel, you raise the price of everything that uses steel. When you add taxes to the price, when you add the carbon tax onto the price of, for example, fertilizer, you increase the price of food. So while Mr. Carney has temporarily hidden the Liberal carbon tax at the pumps while keeping the tax fully in law and planning to raise it after the election, he's also going after a tax on our industry that will ultimately be passed on to you. After a lost Liberal decade of rising costs, we cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a new government that will fully axe the carbon tax, increase the jobs that we have here in Canada, and bring down your cost of living.
We've got just a little over 3 minutes left in this segment. So, Mr. Singh, I want to ask you, do you think climate change is still a priority from Canadians? You're out there. What are you hearing?
Absolutely. You speak to any young person and they think, we're seeing climate crisis in front of us happening right now. You speak to seniors who say, we used to be able to live in our homes without air conditioning, and now we're seeing heat crises.
They
in
lived in their
communities
homes
that never
without air
had
conditioning because they didn't have air
worries
conditioning
about
when they were
extreme
kids.
weather. We're seeing flooding. We're seeing forest fires like never before. We are living in a climate crisis. So Canadians are absolutely worried about it. As soon as we come into a summer, we start seeing those forest fires again. It's top of mind for Canadians because they're living it. They're seeing it. And I want those Canadians to know Mr. Carney is not going to end those fossil fuel subsidies unless I'm there to fight back. Mr. Poilievre wants to let big polluters pollute as much as they want, poison our beautiful land, our water, and air. He wants to let them dump into our oceans. I'm going to fight back and defend our environment.
Monsieur Blanchet, on the issue of whether or not people still care about climate change.
I think people should be kept very informed about climate change because we are in a very strange denial situation about climate change, which still exists and is very expensive. And I'm sorry to crash your party, guys, but you are telling fairy tales. Clean oil and gas is a fairy tale. Large-scale carbon
Oh, let him have it,
sequestration, sorry,
Pierre.
I'm French, is a fairy tale. It does not exist. If Alberta wanted to exploit oil and gas and it were not a matter of pollution, I wouldn't mind at all. That's their business. Our own powerhouse in terms of energy in Quebec is clean energy. We are the best place in the world to achieve that. Our market is the northeastern part, Democrat part of United States. We want to keep our money to create wealth in Quebec for Quebecers. Let us be different because we can afford to be different.
Let me give. I will get to you because I said I would. But you've taken a couple of hits here, and I want to give you a chance to respond to some of the things that people on this side of the stage have said.
Thank you. Well, first of all, we do support protecting the environment. We want to ban the dumping of raw sewage into our waters. We want to hold large corporations to high environmental standards to protect our water and air. But we cannot do that by raising taxes and sending jobs overseas, as Mr. Carney is proposing to do. That has been the approach of the last 10 years of the Liberal government. What the biggest companies that develop our resources say is that we need to repeal the Liberal anti-development law C-69, a law Mr. Carney wants to keep in place. They say we need to repeal the industrial carbon tax and get rid of the Liberal energy cap. We need 6 months approvals in order to to take back energy security and energy sovereignty.
We can summarize that. He wants to conclude as much as
Mr.
possible.
Carney, hang on. Last word to Mr. Carney in this segment, please.
Thank you very much. You know, I was born in Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories, just north of what the oil sands became. When I was born and when I was growing up in Edmonton, early days, it was a fairy tale, quote unquote. But you know what happened? Canadian ingenuity, Canadian engineers, Canadian governments, both the federal government and the Alberta government got together and converted this.
The worst pollution in the world.
If I may.
The worst pollution
may I finish? May I finish?
10 more seconds to finish, please. Let him finish his point.
That's the opportunity we have. That's the opportunity we have in carbon capture. That's the opportunity we have in small modular reactors. That's the opportunity we have in hydrogen beyond. This country can be a clean energy superpower. My government will help deliver it.
And that is time for this segment. Gentlemen, let us go to our final theme, which is called Leading in a Crisis.
Canadians know how to weather a storm. Canadians know how to get through a difficult time.
If, at the end of the day, we end up with the balance of power, Quebec is safer than it could be in any other scenario.
Now is not a time for weakness. Now is the time to take back control.
Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves.
Okay, leading in a crisis is a pretty broad theme that allows us to explore many different avenues here. So let's get to it. Mr. Carney, you get the first question this time. We haven't balanced a budget in this country in 17 years, and 10 of those years were under your party. You have pledged to get us to a balanced budget in 3 years. Question is, how?
So let me put this in the context of leading in a crisis, which is, in a crisis, you got to plan for the worst. Worst is that the U.S. actually does want to take us over. Secondly, you got to have a plan to build, and that'll include a fiscal plan, and I will get to that in a second. The third thing is you need to respond in a crisis with overwhelming force. You need to think big. You need to move rapidly. The things we've been discussing today are a subset of what we can and should do as a nation, and we can deliver. And government can play a role, but its role has to be catalytic. And so our approach is that we will slow the rate of spending. It's been growing
overwhelming
at 9%
force,
a year.
catalytic,
Operational
just
spending,
buzzwords. This
program
guy's just
spending,
saying
away
verbal
from transfers,
diarrhea.
away from transfers, individuals, 9% a year. We'll slow that to 2%. We will focus on a small amount of capital spending by the federal government in order to drive enormous private investment up to $500 billion by 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Ukraine surely constitutes a crisis. Leading in a time of crisis, Mr. Poilievre, question for you. If the United States withholds support from Ukraine going forward, do you believe Canada should commit more to assist?
I believe we should continue to support Ukraine. Our party supported donating missiles that the Canadian military was decommissioning. We supported funds and other armaments to back the Ukrainians in the defense of their sovereignty. We also need to rebuild our own Canadian military because the Russians want to make incursions into our waters. We'll be buying 4 massive Arctic icebreakers. I'll be opening the first Arctic base since the Cold War in Canada, CFB Iqaluit. We're going to double the size of the Arctic Rangers and fill the vacancies in our Canadian armed forces. We need a change to rebuild our military, which has been so disintegrated under the cuts and the mismanagement of the last 10 years. But we can have a change because we have the best soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the world, and they will have full backing from my government if you give me the honor of becoming Prime Minister.
I may come back to that one in the open forum because I'm not sure we got an answer about Ukraine on that one, but okay.
Well,
going on. Monsieur Blanchet.
The answer was yes.
We'll get more details, perhaps, as we go forward. Monsieur Blanchet, given the U.S. trade war, should any talk of a referendum on Quebec independence be put on pause?
That one is easy. It will happen only after the negotiation is over, and that's a good thing. I want to say I support the idea. We must help Ukraine, but we also must help the civilians of Gaza, and we must destroy Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. You know what? I don't want to be the leader of Canada. You will understand that. I don't want to be Prime Minister. But I can offer to be a partner, a responsible partner, a collaborative partner. If Quebec is respected in its differences, in its aluminum industry, in lumberwood industry, and culture, and French language, and values of secularity of the state, which is the price to be paid in order to have real equality, then if we are respected, we will be a partner, and then even Canada will be stronger in its negotiation against Donald Trump. This is what I am offering. Respect us.
Canada has a
Mr.
military of 15,000.
I watched last night's debate. You seem very eager to talk about healthcare, so let's talk a little more healthcare right now. You have made many promises on healthcare. If a province says to you, we'll take your money for healthcare, but not your conditions on how to spend it, what do you do?
We've got to negotiate. We can't be giving away money without clear conditions. We're in a healthcare crisis right now, and a crisis that is hurting people across this country. People are waiting desperately in line in emergency rooms for hours and hours. Seniors are waiting for years and years to get the care that they need for surgeries that would remove pain or help them deal with mobility issues. We're in a serious crisis. Healthcare workers are burnt out. They are overstretched. And what we're seeing is more and more privatization, and that is hurting our public universal healthcare system. So we've got to fight back against it. We cannot allow our public money to go to a for-profit private clinic lining the pockets of a rich CEO or investors instead of going towards care. We need to make sure that we are investing in solutions where care gets to people, not profiting those at the very top. And so that's my commitment. I'm going to fight to make sure we defend our healthcare against the threats of Americanization and privatization.
Okay, we now go to open forum debate, and perhaps, Mr. Poilievre, you get the first word here. This might be a good time to put a little more flesh on the bone of what you think Canada could do for Ukraine if the U.S. backs out.
Yes, and my answer is that we should continue to support Ukraine. We don't need to follow the Americans in everything they do. When they're wrong, then we will stand on our own and with other allies. And with respect to Ukraine, that of course includes support with intelligence, equipment, armaments, but it also includes defunding Putin. Right now, Vladimir Putin has a monopoly on the European energy market because, frankly, the Liberals blocked exports of Canadian natural gas off the Atlantic coast. They blocked multiple projects. I would rapidly approve those projects on national security grounds so that we can actually ship Canadian natural gas over to Europe, break European dependence on Putin, defund the war, and turn dollars for dictators back into paychecks for our people.
Mr. Carney, you wanted to add?
Well, I want to go to the situation in Ukraine because it's very important. We've been a steadfast, Canada has been a steadfast ally, and Canadians have stepped up, welcoming Ukrainians into their homes and supporting them in other ways. In my first month as Prime Minister, we joined the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine as the U.S. stepped back. So led by France, the United Kingdom, with Ukraine, number European nations, Australia, ourselves, New Zealand. That's an example of how the new world is going to be. Canada participating in these areas and helping. It also means open trade. Mr. Poilievre voted against free trade. agreement with Ukraine. It means aid for Ukraine. Mr. Poilievre wants to cut foreign aid, including for Ukraine, or not. He didn't mention support for aid for Ukraine. We have to stand by them. We have to be there, and this government has been.
Mr. Singh.
New Democrats absolutely support standing with Ukraine and will continue to do that. But I appreciate the opportunity in talking about leadership in crisis, talk about many of the crises that we're up against. And one of the crises we're up against in our country with the threat of Donald Trump, with the threat of the trade war, and with the privatization and Americanization of our healthcare system is the healthcare system. And what we have learned today, Mr. Carney mentioned slowing operation spending. That's a cut to services. He said his plan. He has a plan to balance the operating budget within 3 years. That's going to require massive cuts to spending. We calculated that at $43 billion in cuts. In fact, Rosemary Barton, when he was on the show on February 16th, he said he would cut spending. He said it would be in operations. He defined it as transfers in health. And finally, longtime Liberal and former House Leader Karina Gould said that Mr. Carney's plans would mean massive cuts. That's the only way to achieve it. So, Mr. Carney, do you think it is leadership to cut health care at a time when it is in crisis? I think it is wrong. We can't do that.
We will not cut transfers for healthcare. We will not cut healthcare spending full stop.
But
we'll
Mr.
have
Carney,
a detail, if I may.
Who do we believe, Mr. Carney today, or the one he spoke on Rosemary Barton's show on February 16th?
I did not.
The one that repeated again that he would cut spending?
If I may,
who do we believe?
If I may. Consistently said, we'll preserve all transfers to the provinces, including the increases. We will preserve all the transfers to individuals, I won't detail them all, but there. So we're looking at addressing an operational spend, which is about $150 billion. We will address that. We will make it more efficient, and we will do it in 3 years, and we'll balance that budget.
Monsieur Blanchet.
I am 6
They will
minutes
balance that budget.
behind Mr. Carney, so I will speak a little bit longer. First, I will support any initiative which will bring Canada aligned with Europe and NATO in order to be stronger and facing new threats. Good. I believe that 2% won't be enough. I'm not more in favor of war than anybody else, but we have responsibilities, and our main ally is removing himself from the stage. So we have to step up. We have to do our part. I want to go somewhere else entirely, however. I want to ask Mr. Carney, if we're speaking about leadership here, if Quebec and Canada were to say, you are not being given a majority government, there will be more conservatives than you would like, maybe more New Democrats than you would like, and more people from the bloc than you would like. Will you accept, because you don't seem to be very eager about that, to deal with people which basically are more experienced than you are, as legitimate as you are, and would be more representative altogether than you would be being alone in your little kingdom? And I want also to propose to you all guys that 1 week after the election, we all meet, whatever the result, and we start dealing with this crisis together, because this is what people, either they are from Alberta or Quebec or wherever, this is what people expect from us.
Mr. Carney, is that something you could get behind?
I look forward to meeting with everyone. You're welcome to come, Steve, if you'd like. Week after twice, but also, but in all seriousness,
that's not very respectful.
No, but I'll
that's
come.
not very
but I'm
respectful.
coming. On peut jaser un peu. Okay, I will. Okay. I come to the.
On peut jaser. Shut your face, Carney.
Look, in a crisis, yes, you need a team, and you need to bring the country along with you. So what I did in the first week was to bring the premiers together, meet with all the Indigenous leaders, and move forward in that context. Now, the question is, who's going to lead out of this? Whoever leads out of this, if I may, Mr. Blanchet, merci, thank you. Whoever's going to lead out of this is going to need to work with all the provinces, work with Labour, work with Indigenous leaders, work with all Canadians to bring them forward in a united front. And if I make this last point, one of the things that has happened, which is a credit to those people at home, is that Canadians are coming together.
Oh, yeah.
And it's our responsibility to meet the strength of Canadian unity.
Still lagging. I have one small point to make.
Yep.
You will be elected, if you are elected in the parliament, where there are other leaders. I don't know if he called you or Mr. Poilievre, I don't know if he called you, but before yesterday, you have not spoken to me once, even if I proposed it so many times. But you say, I speak to provinces' leaders. You're not elected in provinces. You are in a parliament where people are to make decisions which might not always suit you. But this is democracy,
Blanchet, I'm
which
going to
you
jump
don't know
in.
too much about.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm noticing what the clock is saying, and you brought up Gaza earlier, and I think our audience would be interested in hearing your views on the other major international crisis facing the
I just
world
want to
right
get,
now.
Mr. Speaker, before we get that, just to finish up on the
Shut
healthcare,
up,
I just
Doug.
want to speak to healthcare workers right now
Shut
who
your
are
face.
deeply worried about the status of our healthcare system, to Canadians who believe and love our universal public healthcare system, to patients who are stressed out. If you're worried about
Singh,
which
shut
Mr.
up,
Carney
Doug
to
Mead.
believe,
You're not
the
getting-
one
you're
today
losing
or the
your own
one who
seat.
spoke on previous shows and said he would
Mr.
cut,
Singh, I
vote for
think-
New Democrats, and we will fight to defend our
Yeah.
healthcare.
I think your
we will never
supporters
let
would really
anyone
like
cut
to
it.
hear what you have to say about this question, and we have less than 5 minutes for it here. What role should Canada play in the other major international crisis in this world, in the Middle East and the war in Gaza? Pierre Poilievre, would you start us off on that? What role can Canada play?
Well, first of all, we must condemn Hamas and, more importantly, the terror sponsors in Tehran who initiated the attacks, the horrific attacks of October 7th. We need to defeat the terrorists so that all the peoples of the world can live in peace and defend the right of, yes, Palestinians to have their own lives free from the oppression of Hamas dictators and Iranian intervention, while Israel has the ability to live in freedom and peace. But I also want to say, we need to get back to the Canadian tradition, which is that when people come to this country, they leave foreign conflicts behind. The rampaging riots targeting Jewish communities is utterly unacceptable, and it points to the growing chaos that we see on our streets after 10 years of incredibly irresponsible liberal policies of weak borders, of dividing people into groups, of saying one thing to one group and the opposite to another, dividing and conquering. We must end that division and unite our people so that everyone feels safe, and that when we come here, we put our foreign conflicts behind.
When we come
and
here?
we put
That's
Canada
not people.
first.
Mr.
People
Singh,
come
please,
from
go
countries
ahead.
from around the world, and they care deeply about where they come from, and they should be able to do so.
Okay,
That's
shut
a
the
part
borders
of
then.
being in
Shut
our
the
country
borders.
to have that freedom.
No, shut the
Your treatment
borders.
of Palestinians has been frankly disgusting. Your treatment of people who provide care and service for people in Gaza has been disgusting. On top of that,
The
people
fact
in
that
Israel
Jagmeet
and in
Singh
Palestine
is
deserve to live in
basically a
peace and
terrorist
security.
sympathizer
And
does
Mr.
not
Carney,
make
to
him
date,
strong
you've not
on this.
acknowledged that what's going on in Gaza is now clearly become a genocide. It's important to call things out as they are, and you've not done that.
Mr. Carney.
We need to work, to go to your question, we need to work with our international partners, maximum pressure, maximum encouragement for an immediate ceasefire. That's the first thing. Encourage the return of all of the hostages.
Oh, the ones that
Resumption of
haven't been
humanitarian
murdered.
aid.
Yeah.
My government put in place $100 million of humanitarian aid,
My
which
government?
is ready to go.
Well, but I thought it wasn't his
with
government.
respect to where this ultimately goes. Yes, two-state solution, but
Hold on.
it has
Did he
to
say
be
my
a
government as
viable
in something
and free
Trudeau did earlier?
Palestinian state, living side by side in peace and security
Liberal
with the state of
government?
Israel. I will
I'm
underscore
sure.
one other thing. Mr. Poilievre rightly mentioned Iran, the Iranian sponsors in this region. We have to be clear-eyed about the fundamental risks of Iran and do everything
it's a
with our
new
international
pledge.
partners to check it and turn it.
Mr. Blanchet.
If we are to work together, we will have to be consistent. The Jewish community in Quebec and Canada is harassed by a very little minority of radical Islamists. And we
Very
don't
little
do
minority
so, we don't
of
do so
1.6
much.
billion
The law
people is quite a big
in Canada
number.
says that somebody may invite people to be violent, to propose genocide against another people if they can be hidden behind a religious motivation. They are in agreement with that. They are in agreement with that. They are in agreement with that. And we say it is a crime to invite people to violence and killing other people. And this is what is being done very often in Canada and Quebec with the approval of the Criminal Code of Canada. And we are saying this has to be changed. We have to change what we do before we want people elsewhere to change what they do.
Last minute in this segment, Mr. Poilievre.
This is about crises and leadership. And one crisis we have is in immigration. because of this Liberal government's commitment to a radical policy called the Century Initiative, which seeks to bring our population up to 100 million people. They have allowed massive overcrowding in our communities. That has caused housing shortages, job shortages,
Don't blame immigration
and healthcare
for the
shortages.
fault of your government.
And if I could,
the fact that you
Shut your face, John. He's making a point.
I did not interrupt you.
Don't blame.
I do not blame.
your
If I
failures.
could,
Cut his mic off, you freaking.
I do not blame immigrants. I blame the Liberal government, which brought this policy on. And Mr. Carney wants to continue with the Century Initiative. This is crazy. We have to get back to normal levels of immigration. Get rid of the fraud in the temporary immigration system.
What are normal
and
levels?
ensure that the people who
What
come
are
here can
normal
arrive in numbers that we can house, employ,
What are those
and care
numbers?
for. That's how it always was, and that's how we're going to restore
Thank
it.
you, Mr.
What are those
Polyev. That is
numbers?
our time for this segment. Those are our 5 themes, but we are not done yet. We are entering
the
the next
debate.
section of our debate tonight, what we're calling the leader's choice, something a little bit different. Each of you will get the chance to ask a question, any question, of any other leader. You can then debate the answer, and each one on one will last for 3 minutes.
I like this.
So, Mr. Singh, you have the first option here. Who do you want to ask your question of?
Mr. Carney.
Yes. Okay, fine.
Mr.
I
Carney,
like you now,
as
Judge.
chair of Brookfield Investments,
Yes.
your company is one of the biggest tax dodgers in Canada.
Good.
As chair, you approve decisions.
I
where
love
Brookfield
Jugmeat. I
Investments
take
bought
back
up
everything I've ever
affordable
said.
homes, kicked out the tenants, and jacked up the rates. As prime minister, one of the first things you did was a tax cut that helped out mostly millionaires.
I'm joking,
and
but I still hate
you
Jugmeat.
have planned to cut services for people. Now, I expect that of Mr. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. That's very
Shut your
much a
filthy mouth
Conservative
and
plan.
just get back to Carney,
But my
please.
concern is that doesn't sound like what people want for a Liberal leader. So my question to you is, Mr. Carney, whose side are you really on?
China.
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Singh. I'm on the side of Canadians. I'm in this for Canadians. I work for
He
Canadians.
spent a decade in the UK.
But your
You know,
track
I
record doesn't
had
show that, though.
no. I have a track record of public service for this country. Go back to something Mr. Blanchet referenced earlier, which is have I resolved any crises? We're in Quebec. If you ask anyone in the finance industry, if you ask anyone in government in Quebec in 2008, they'll know that I resolved the biggest crisis in Quebec. Yeah.
You won't have fun.
On y va. Good, but
60 million
But,
of
may
dollars.
I, but I'm
This
in
is for these
fairness
two only.
with Mr.
This is
Singh.
for these two.
Mr. Singh. Yes, I have had a long career in the private sector. I'm proud of that career. I've always acted with integrity, and it brings me with experience that I can apply
But no one's
in this
questioning your
moment,
integrity,
in moment
sir.
of crisis.
And you certainly have served the country. But the problem is who have you served? You've served to benefit those at the very top. You jacked up the price of homes for people living in affordable homes as a strategic decision. You dodged taxes. And then your decisions as prime minister show you're not prioritizing people, but you're prioritizing big business, billionaires.
So the what have
God,
we
can
done
this guy say,
as
why
a government
was
directly? So
on the
we've
calcium
gone
market?
directly to workers using
My
all of our
goodness.
proceeds from the tariffs, committing all of them for workers, the workers most affected in
But the
industries.
employment insurance isn't high
unlike
enough.
others, unlike others who
But the amount,
plan
let's
to
talk
use
about the
them,
amount.
use them to cut taxes.
Look, I hate Jugmeat, but I kind of
we,
like him right now.
are
The amount
focused
of
on.
EI is not high enough, though. You have to accept that. Right now, it's
There
only
will
covering-
be additional programs. I am fully confident that the next government, whatever government is formed, or certainly if I'm in the next government, we will make additional programs.
But you didn't do that
for
so
those
far,
work-
though.
Well, I can't. You
could have.
couldn't. Well, you couldn't, given that we're in an election
You
process.
could have increased the
May
amount, though.
I make a core point here, if I may, which is that when you think about workers here today and people watching at home, particularly younger people, there is an enormous opportunity in the trades, in the skilled trades. We are going to build this country in a way that has not been seen before. We are literally talking about hundreds of thousands, not jobs, but careers
But I
in
think
the
people are
trade.
worried, Mr.
And
Carney,
that's
that-
why we're investing in apprenticeships and mid-career.
But I think people are worried, Mr. Carney, if New Democrats aren't there to force Liberals to make sure they remember about people they will forget.
Gentlemen, that is time. Thank you for that. Monsieur Blanchet,
That was
you
the
have
most
the next
useless thing I've
question.
ever
To whom
seen,
would you
but
like to put?
congratulations.
Mr. Carney, you avoided quite, I would say,
Eloquently.
skillfully the questions of Mr. Singh. But first, let me correct something. In 2008, not so much by your decision, $10 billion were given to car industry in Ontario, while 60 millions, not billions of dollars, were lent to lumberwood throughout the whole of Canada. I don't believe that's the right
Throughout,
way
not
to
trout.
manage a crisis since you did not recoup the money from the car industry. Then, you have been the manager of Brookfield. It's supposed to be a green investment fund. But we now know that 50% of the investments of Brookfield is in fossil fuel.
I love this
It's
guy.
not so green.
He's so good.
You seem to want to support oil and gas industry. That's interesting.
Yep.
You want to support prefab housing, and it's also
why is
in the
Blanchet
investments
making these
of
points and not Pierre Poilievre?
Brookfield,
Maybe
but
they have
not
an
in Canada.
agreement.
You want to support nuclear power, smaller reactors, which are more dangerous, by the way. And Brookfield has investments in Westinghouse.
Interesting.
You have hidden the money of Brookfield in Bermuda and Cayman Islands.
Why is
billions of
Blanchet
dollars.
making
Billions
these
of dollars
points
lost
and not Pierre?
for Canada.
Mr.
You
Blanchet,
are
you gotta give
having
him
your
some time to answer.
taxes being paid
Shut
by
up. Let him
families,
cook.
workers,
Cook it,
elders in
Blanchet.
Canada and Quebec instead of paying your own taxes. So I want
Yes.
to know, will you, before the election, reveal all the details of your assets as Mr.
before
Singh has
election,
done,
we've
as
got
Mr.
11
Poilievre has
days.
done, and as I have done? We have a right
Okay,
to
let's
know
let him answer.
under those circumstances.
Let's let him answer.
Well, the first thing is I want to say a word about. I'll say a word about Brookfield. This is a Canadian success story. It is the largest infrastructure investment
move to New York.
in the world. It is one of the largest, if not the largest, developer of renewable power in the world.
And it moved to
and
New
who
York.
benefits from that? That's Canadian pensioners. That's Quebec pensioners. That is teachers. That firefighters. It is a series of people, including individuals on this stage.
Yeah, him.
Benefit from that.
Him.
Now,
You.
always acted
You.
with integrity. Served the shareholders of Brookfield when I was there. I have left that. I have followed all the rules
A little bit of
well
the
in
old
advance.
Gavin Newsom.
I have followed
reveal
all
your
the
assets.
rules well in
Let's
Show your
reveal your
assets.
assets like
And-
we all did.
and working for the people of Canada.
What do you own? Why
And that is
don't
time,
you tell
gentlemen.
Canadians
Why
and
is
That is
Quebecers
time.
what you
giving
own?
Monsieur Blanchet,
Carney
we're
a
moving
hard
on to
time
Mr.
than
Poilievre
Pierre
now, who
Poilievre.
has his opportunity to ask the question of whomever he'd like here, and that will be
Mr. Carney. But if I could
Look him up.
begin by setting the stage. The choice in this election is, after a lost Liberal decade of rising cost and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, do we want to elect them to a fourth term?
Under the
Or
Liberals' thumb.
do we want to change? Change so that you can afford food and homes. Change so that you can be safe on your street, and change so that your paycheck grows faster than your cost of living.
Inflation?
Change with a new conservative government.
Did you just say
Because Mr.
America
Carney has not changed.
and not liberals?
Mr. Carney, in 2020, it was recorded, you began advising Justin Trudeau.
Oh, there you go.
It's still on the Liberal Party website today that you are Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. They might want to update your website on that.
Clip it.
On June 3rd of
Look at Carney's face.
2021,
He actually just looked to the
you
side.
said
Clip it.
that inflation would be a sign of economic progress. And you advised governments, including Justin Trudeau's, your Liberal government, to print money, which led to the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now, that means that mothers went to bed with empty fridges and empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their homes, that young people believed they'd never be able to own a home in the first place. Now, in retrospect, you look back on the Liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take. Will you look at the camera in the eye and apologize to the many people who suffered as a result of the inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement?
Yes.
I said earlier.
This is
but
the
I'm gonna
moment.
Say it again.
This is the moment.
I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you denying
I
you
am
were his
here.
economic advisor?
I did not provide any of that advice. I did not provide any of that
It's
advice.
on the Liberal Party
I'm
website.
sorry. Well,
Are you accusing your
This
Liberal
is it.
Party
The- the
of
ele-
lying
this is the
about
election
your
moment
role?
right now,
It
by the
says
way.
today you can
This
go to
is-
the Liberal Party website now, and it says that you
I
were
think what
Justin
you-
Trudeau's
what- the
economic
way
This
you-
advisor.
is this
the way
is the
you
moment
judge.
of the election.
the way you judge someone, in my view, is how they act. what they do when they have responsibility.
Holy
Twice
shit,
I was
people.
a central bank governor.
This is it.
And in both cases,
Timestamps if you want,
if
without
I
the
may, in
commentary.
both cases when I was responsible for inflation was less than 2%. I'll add that when I was here responsible for the Bank of Canada, inflation was less than 2%. Our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And what is at stake here?
You were the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau that gave us the worst inflation that we have had in a generation, because the policies that you implemented and those of the MPs that are still in your ministry.
To the
fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the last 10 years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about you.
And that's time.
Holy
Mr.
crab
Carney.
apples, people. You could
Good
snip
news is
that
the
and
next
clip
question
that.
is
That's
yours.
the moment
Well, I'm
of the
going to ask
debate.
myself a question.
I'm going to go check the markets right now.
Actually, I'm
Carney
going to ask
just
a question
shat his pants.
which has been troubling me. And it's troubling me because
This is
we are
hold on a second. I'm not right. I'm not maybe right. I am right. That was the moment of the election. That's going to be snipped. I'm going to put it on mute.
We're in a dangerous
go watch
and divided
this, and I'm gonna
world.
go
We
clip
talked
that right now.
earlier
That was-
about
that was
the challenges in
redonk.
the Middle East.
That was cray-cray.
The threats from Iran.
That was holy baby.
Threats from Russia. Russia's aggression in Ukraine.
Oh, he just said Russia too.
We have the threats from
Holy
China,
crab apples.
which I raised. We have the United States, which is fundamentally changing its security relationships, its commercial relationships. We have all this. And in the context of that, everyone on this stage, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance.
Oh,
we have our top secret security clearance.
He's taking Justin Trudeau's
within
talking
3 weeks.
point
It wasn't
now.
hard, but I felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be informed about that dangerous world and take decisions at. And Mr. Poilievre,
He
it
didn't
is
get
now
his clearance.
950 days, if my numbers are right.
Oh my gosh,
since you've
this
had
is the moment all of
opportunity
this.
to get your top
Do you know what he's
secret
going to say
security
right now?
clearance, and you've
Because Pierre's
refused.
not stupid. I'm
Why?
going to go sign on with an NDA.
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance
I'd have a
briefings,
gag
that I
order.
would be gagged.
Oh,
Under
I'm
the
so
security
freaking
law,
smart. I'm
and I
leaving.
could be
I'm leaving.
prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do.
my
Even
God,
Thomas
Carney just
Mulcair,
fell
the
into
former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I'd made that decision, because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment. And you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company. But the reality is you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government. And I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted to impose on me.
Well,
let him
there's a
respond.
couple interesting
Please,
things.
add the flame emojis.
I think people at home have seen a robust debate here, and it's been a robust campaign. And it has not stopped Mr. Blanchet or Mr. Singh at times during his campaign by making challenges
Holy
with respect to these issues.
hell.
So
This
one
is
can
amazing.
address it. I will observe, as someone with a top secret security clearance, that China is not the only country that is accused of foreign interference. And
Okay, tell us how many other ones are accused you.
That's our time. Now, closing statements are still a few minutes down the road, so we have a little bit of time for some quick hit Q&As for each of you right
Hold on,
now.
I may have just
Short
had a
questions,
political
45
orgasm.
seconds, please, on the answers, and we're going to go left to right as I look at you right now. Mr. Poilievre, you get the first question.
My
To the best of
goodness.
my knowledge, you have not offered a hard timeline, as the other parties have, to meet Canada's NATO commitment of 2% spending on defense.
Nothing
when would
that
you hit
happens
that
from
target?
this moment on matters
My aim
right
will
now.
be to 2030.
We just saw history.
That said, when we renegotiate our trade deal with the U.S., I know it's their priority to see us increase our military budget. One of the things I will say to the
We've been
Americans
clipping these
is the
timestamps,
more
right?
free trade, tariff-free free trade we have, the faster we can rebuild our military in Canada and reassert our sovereignty. And we will use that money
Sophia.
to have heavy icebreakers in the north, Poseidon aircraft, fighter jets, a new base in the north, double the Arctic Rangers, fill the vacancies in the armed forces, and rebuild the warrior spirit that characterized our military since the birth of our country. We will rebuild our forces, and we will stand behind our veterans.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. Mr. Carney, your question. You have cut both the consumer carbon tax and the capital gains tax increase that you inherited from your predecessor.
Inherited. He
Is
advised
that
on
an
it.
admission that the Liberals made life less affordable for Canadians?
I'm sorry.
I think let me give you the rationale behind both of those changes. First, with respect to the consumer carbon tax, in effect, it become too divisive for Canadians. Canadians received rebates on the whole. They
became too
received
divisive,
more than
meaning
the
nobody
tax
liked it,
actually
you
was.
effing idiot.
But some had represented that it was a tax without a rebate. It became divisive.
He's
It
done.
didn't serve its purpose. It made a
Please snip and
relatively
clip
modest
and share
contribution to
and
overall
put it on
climate
blast.
goals. I got rid of it. First act made Canadians whole. Secondly, but with respect to the capital gains tax, it's come up again. I'll be quick. This is a fundamental issue. We need to build this country. Builders, innovators, entrepreneurs need to be rewarded. That's why I brought it back.
And that's time. Thank you. Mr. Singh, would you change the existing cap on immigration?
I've said that the level of immigration, first of all, we need immigration. It's fundamentally important to our country. And we speak to any small business owner, you speak to people here in Quebec, you speak to farmers. It's fundamentally important. A couple of things, though, we know we need to be able to set the amount of folks that we welcome to our country at a level that it meets our needs. So I would ensure that we've got an expert panel that makes that determination based on our economic needs. We also know that we should be very clear that the lack of investment from Liberals and Conservatives resulted in the fact that we have a shortage in housing. That's something that we've got to fix. I should also point out that if you are worried about the cuts being proposed by Liberals and Conservatives, vote for New Democrats. We'll fight back to protect Canadians and make sure that we've got the right immigration levels.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. That's time. Mr. Blanchet, Quebec, I believe, is now the only province with a carbon tax. Do you think that's fair?
It's not entirely true. It's not a tax. What Quebec has is a system by which we invite big emission companies, I don't know how to translate that, to reduce their emissions. If they do not, then they have to pay. It goes into a fund which is invested then in reducing emissions. Our partner is California, which makes this a huge deal about reducing emissions. This is what we do. This is to be compared to what Europe does. And by the way, Europe would impose tariffs on Canadian oil if it ever got there. We're quite proud of that. And we have to be responsible because this is much less expensive than doing nothing to fight climate change.
That's time. We're going to do another set of quick hits here, left to right again, and 30 seconds this time. Monsieur Poilievre, you've previously promised to defund the CBC as one of your very first acts as Prime Minister. Is that still the plan?
Yes, CBC will continue to operate as a self-funded, Canadian-owned and controlled non-for-profit that raises money like other media organizations through sponsorships, subscriptions, advertising, licensing fees, and countless other things that will ensure Canadians who still want to listen and view its content will be able to do so. And at the same time, we'll allow freedom of the press so that everybody has their voice heard and they can make their own decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. The next question to you, 30 seconds. Would you remove some of Canada's legal tax avoidance loopholes that companies that you have worked for have used?
Look, I think that what we need to do is undertake a comprehensive review of our corporate tax system and do that on the basis of the right principles. We've got to have fairness, transparency, sustainability, and competitiveness. So we need a tax system, a corporate tax system, including being part of a international minimum corporate tax through the OECD.
And that is time. Mr. Singh, the question for you is, if you hold the balance of power after this election is over, what would your price be to support another party?
We've laid out our priorities. We want to make sure we bring down the cost of groceries, build homes that people can afford. I can also tell you that we would defend CBC, unlike Mr. Poilievre, who wants to cut it, and we would close tax loopholes and offshore tax havens, even though Mr. Carney didn't respond to that, and selling stocks and shares to make profits and then having less taxes on that is not hard work. And so those aren't the job creators. The people who are job creators are the hardworking men and women that contribute to our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Monsieur Blanchet, kind of the same question. If you hold the balance of power in the next minority parliament, if it is that, what would be the price of your support?
Respect for Quebec. That's quite easy. I don't want to go against what Canada wants to do for itself, but I don't want Canada to impose an economic vision or a multiculturalist vision on Quebec, which is different in terms of language and values and secularity and equality between people. So I want to be a partner, and if Quebec is respected, Canada has nothing to fear from the Bloc because we vote for what is good for Quebec. It only has to be good for Quebec.
Thank you, Monsieur Blanchet. Now, we have one last question for each of you. We'll go right to left this time as I look at you. Bit of an offbeat question. Mr. Blanchet, what is your biggest regret during this campaign?
That's a very good question. I'm not very fond of regrets, I would say, but we should have started sooner to see that we had to create the environment for a deal in which Quebec and Canada would be, one bigger than the other, but partners to be stronger in front of Mr. Trump and showing that maybe nobody here is the partner to let go alone without being surveyed or controlled or supervised by a Quebec voice.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Same question, Mr. Singh. Your biggest regret of this campaign?
Not being able to meet as many people as I would love to have. It's a short campaign, and so I can't get to as many communities that I wanted to. I think one of the honors of my job is to be able to meet people and to hear their stories, and then to take their stories and concerns and bring them to Ottawa and to fight for those people. And so I want you to know, even if I haven't made it to your community, I'm going to fight like hell to make sure that you're represented, that we never let any government cut our healthcare, that we defend the values that we care so deeply about. We make my life more affordable. That's my commitment to you. Even if I didn't get to see you, that's my commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carney, same question. Biggest regret of the campaign?
I'm to be honest, it's the same answer. This is an astonishing country. It is an amazing country. And the opportunity and the responsibility that comes with it of being with Canadians, hearing their stories, their challenges, drawing strength and ideas from them, and working to be part of the solution is the greatest honor of my life. But the regret is that it is also a big country, and it is a short period of time.
Mr. Poilievre, last word to you.
I actually agree with these two gentlemen. I had a rule that at all my rallies, even when they're really big, I would stand in front of a flag and greet every single person and hear their stories and learn their struggles. And that was always touching to me, that they would put their faith in me or in any of us.
Yeah.
But we've been in such a rush because we have to get off to the next event, so we haven't been able to stop and do that. And I want you to know out there, I haven't forgot about you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. It is time now for closing statements, and prior to the debate, you drew lots as to which order we would go in, and Mr. Singh, you get the first word on a closing statement.
Certainly, thank you. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to build this country that we love. Universal health care and pensions, because you voted for us. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to fight to bring in dental care, pharmacare, and childcare. Because you voted for us, because you supported us. You have the power with your vote to send more New Democrats to Ottawa, to continue that fight, to make sure that no government cuts the things that we hold dear, like our health care, to ensure that we can do everything possible to make life more affordable by making it more affordable to buy your groceries and to get a home. I'm asking for your support in this election so that I can continue to fight to defend the things that make Canada, Canada, the things that we hold dear, the things that make us proud to be Canadian.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carty.
We are facing the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. Donald Trump is trying to fundamentally change the world economy, the trading system. But really what he's trying to do to Canada, he's trying to break us so the U.S. can own us. They want our land, they want our resources, they want our water, they want our country.
Water?
We're all
They've already got the water.
Against Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah. Donald Trump.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I've managed crises over the years.
Yeah.
I've built strong economies.
Crises of liberals making.
We will fight back with counter tariffs. We will protect our workers.
I'm not getting ahead of myself.
Economy. We will build Canada strong.
This
I'm
son of a
asking for your
bitch
support.
just lost the election.
The honor of doing so. Thank you.
Fuck you.
Thank you,
sorry,
Mr.
I didn't
Carney.
mean to
Mr.
swear, but
Blanchet.
fuck you.
For
this guy, I like him.
260 years and a little bit more, les Français, devenus des Canadiens, devenus des Canadiens français,
became Canadians, they became
devenus
French
des
Canadians.
Québécois.
They became Quebecers.
You have tried to have them become Canadians like all Canadians. But
translate as
to
English.
no avail. We are different. So let's be economic partners.
Yeah, you're different.
Let's
You
have
re-elected
a
that
voice
François Legault
chosen
piece of
by
shit
and
tyrant.
for
So go fuck
Quebecers.
yourself. You,
and ally
Blanchet. I
for
like you, but go
Canadians
fuck yourself.
as equals in front of Mr. Trump.
Monsieur Poilievre.
You're not equals. You're
Only
not
in
equals.
Canada
You never will be equals.
Did
Understand.
someone start where I began and get to this stage? I was born to a single mother and adopted by school teachers who raised me to believe in the incredible Canadian promise that anyone who worked hard could do anything. That promise feels broken today. Many of you worried about paying your bills, feeding your families, or ever even owning a home. You're worried your kids are in danger. But I'm here to say it doesn't have to be this way. With change, we can restore the Canadian promise so that hard work gets you a beautiful house on a safe street under a proud flag. We can do it with hope for a change.
Gentlemen, thank you for a very
Hope and
spirited
change
debate
is
tonight.
Probably not the
Two
best
quick points
motto
before
that
we
you
go.
wanna have.
Number one of you celebrated your 60th birthday yesterday on this stage. Yves-François Blanchet, bon anniversaire.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Secondly, you'll notice we didn't have to change the time of this debate because the Leafs already clinched the Atlantic Division title,
Nobody
and therefore
cares
we
about
didn't need to
hockey.
move the debate to accommodate a
At least on
hockey
this
game.
channel.
I'm getting back at my colleague who was in this position last night, and okay, go Habs, go. That's fine. With that, we're done. Thank you, leaders, for being here tonight.
get
We
over
are
that,
just
we're
11
done.
days from Election Day, April 28th. But there are many ways that you can cast your ballot starting tomorrow at advance polls. If you intend to vote by
Holy
mail, that
shit,
deadline
people.
is April 22nd.
That
Make sure to check your
was
voter card for details or contact Elections
wild.
Canada. This is your democratic right, and we hope you use it. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Steve Paikin. Good night from Montreal.
Steve Pagan. All right, I'm going to read through some of the chats.
I have some questions for you.
Yeah, dude, hold on a second. I'll bring this out. I just need to get it. Let me just see what happens. Maybe we get a hot mic. Oh, Jagmeet Singh saying, sorry, I'm such a mentally deficient idiot. Mark Carney's like, good one there. You really fucked me hard. And now he's going to say, well, I'm done. That's it. All right, thanks. Enjoy the prime ministership. Thanks for the thumbs up. You'll be in my cabinet. Yeah, thank you. Call me. Blanchet, well done, sir. You really represented Quebec and only Quebec, but that's what you're there for. We got that guy. Oh, hey, well done, sir. I'm taller than you. Oh, he's going to give him his laptop? Holy shit. That last, I'm telling you that the moment that we witnessed is the end of the election. And it's not because I like Pierre. Yeah, pull you. Oh, and Jagmeet's like, what the hell? Oh, that's right. I just shit on everybody and everyone leaves me here alone. I'm just going to leave. Oh, thumbs up to my team? Nope. Oh, my team's gone. So what do I do here? Well, you got a nice, just look there and just talk to people. Oh, no, just walk off. Oh, look at that. Just kick your heels. Good for him. Jagmeet Singh's got big feet. His feet are at least a size 10.5. Everyone Google the size of Jagmeet Singh's feet. I guarantee you it's 10.5. And now we're done. You want to know why I know what his size of the feet was? I used to sell shoes. Holy crab apples. For the last 10 minutes, Jack Dorsey's.
Do you think 10.5 is a big shoe?
Well, how tall are you, sir?
Mine are 13s.
Shut your face. Are you 6'3"?
I am.
Okay.
That's exactly.
So I used to sell shoes. So that's a normal size for a 6'3". Do you know how tall I am in Cryptus?
5'6".
Yes. No, 5'5.5". Do you know what size my foot is?
That would be 8.5.
Yeah, if my wiener were small. No, it's a 9.5. I'm a size 9.5 with a wide foot. I'm sorry, it's so stupid. Like nobody cares about this. In Cryptus, the culmination, the climax of that entire debate was worth the entire however many hours of suffering we had.
So there's a couple questions I have. So you got very excited at a few different parts of this. Now I understood when PP grew some balls at that one part. I actually had some respect for him. I had lost all my respect throughout the last 2 days of this. I had a little bit more than you have.
I saw you fighting with Steve Britton in our locals community.
Oh yeah,
not that I care. It's
yeah,
just, it's all fun and games.
no, no, and I still love Steve. No worries. My issue is that he acted very weak, and I like the fact that he acted strong. But there was a few points that you reacted very strongly, and I really don't understand what you're acting so strongly. Like,
okay, fine. Which moments?
You can explain. It was before that. There was a handful of times that you started like, "Oh my god, I gotta tweet this," and like, I didn't understand what points they made that was so amazing.
Well, the first one was when Mark Carney said we got to inflict maximum harm on America. That's actually amazing. And in as much as you can get Trump to tweet or chime in on this in the last 12, the problem is it's basically people's decisions are done. And so you got it's April 17th. The election's on the 28th. Is it the 20th or the 29th? Whatever. Is there an April 29th? There isn't. It's April 28th. No, he basically it's kind of amazing. He basically said we're going to try to inflict maximum harm on the U.S. while aligning with China. I need to find the tweet where Carney was talking about aligning with China to make better trade deals because of. Hold on, I'm getting distracted by your face here. You want the blue streaks on your face? If this were blue light, oh, he's out. No, you can bring it back in Cryptus. I want to make jokes here. If this were blue light showing things on this part of the right hand side of your head, you might want to get those streaks out. Bottom line, I love it. You look like Jack Dorsey met the Matrix. No, when Carney said we're going to inflict,
you saying that doesn't look like me.
No, I mean you got a neon blue beard, so that's not going to work. When Carney said we're going to inflict maximum harm on America, that's marketable. And whether or not Trump does it, fucking Pierre Poilievre better do that. That's like I'm declaring war. Like what I'm doing right now is to inflict maximum harm on America and Americans, and I'm complaining about Trump hurting Canadians by imposing a tariff. I mean, holy hell, that's confession through projection. But hold on, I got distracted here. Whenever I see Viva will stare at a man's butt, but he can't stand to look at him. No, it's just because okay, whatever. So there was that. I need to get the exact other timestamps, but the one that was amazing was just the last one, where Carney. It's so amazing when you see people fall into traps, whether or not it was Pierre Poilievre setting it up for the entire 2-hour evening, that he got Carney to fall into the trap of pulling out the "why didn't you agree to the clearance" bullshit. Anybody paying attention knew it. And I don't know how many people are watching this. Like, we're watching it here, but I don't know how many people in Canadian media are watching this. So this is why, like, we're force multipliers. We are, let's just say 3,000 people now paying attention to Canadian politics. When Poilievre said, yeah, you wanted me to sign on to that to get my clearance so that I would be gagged and not be able to talk about it. I've been saying that for a freaking month and a half, maybe 2 months. By the way, none of this, Pierre is good. I didn't hear Tamara Leach's name come up. I didn't hear charter rights. I didn't hear the Ottawa protests. It's fine. Trust the plan. He's got to say what he's got to get elected. I don't trust Pierre Poilievre. I trust him to be a fair weather politician. I trust Carney to sell Canada to the Chinese. Someone's got to find a tweet that Carney just put out recently that said we need to establish better trade relations with China because of America, while simultaneously tonight saying China's the biggest threat to Canada. I was trying to look for that and I couldn't find it. Those are the two big ones. That was fun. I mean, that was a very, very. Oh, hold on. What I have to do actually, because I don't want to not be good about it. Hold on. No, and yes. Here it is. This is what I need to. Oh yeah, look at. I like Yves Blanchette. Like the funny thing is, I don't like his politics, But I like the man with principles and consistency. Alberta referendum either way, says Astro Sweat. Hold on. Excuse me. No foreign aid when our country is economically collapsing. None at all, says the Lone Canuck. Lone Canuck says, healthcare sucks right now because the Liberals NDP brought in 7 million people in 9 years. Let's just say it's 5 million people, so we don't have to argue over details. All the immigrants are using our healthcare system without paying into it and overburdening it. This is true. Forced Name Change says, apologies, Viva, if I get a little spicy tonight. Forced Name Change, don't worry. We all got spicy tonight, including Pierre. But I'm telling you this. I got it. I got the moment with my commentary. Everyone out there, I don't want to go do it. Clip it without my commentary because I think I distract from it. That was the moment. We saw it. Carney, you look at Carney's eyes. And maybe I'm a little too... what's up? Yeah, sure. Carney went like this. He was like a man caught with his hand in the cookie jar. A baby who was caught pooping his diaper. I've got a kid in here. Look, what are you looking for? Your headphones? No, my scrap paper. She's looking for her scrap paper. Just bear in mind we're live, so you may not want to. What's going on with the scrap paper? It's like colorful. Colorful scrap paper. I assure you, I have not seen that. Seems is it because your homework is not done?
No, I'm making a craft.
It's all okay. So, excuse me. Let's go back. I'm going to get back here. Okay, so we got apology. You get spicy. Yes, you fucking pull start. That's how communism works. Yes, you. Okay, that's from Forced Name Change. 2014 Leapfrog says, Rumble keeps buffering. I noticed that as well. I was listening to it on my phone when I went to the other room. It's terrible. This happens frequently, but it's frustrating tonight. Rumble needs to do better. Please let them know. I am missing a lot. I will let them know. I did notice it when I went to
goes live in 10 minutes.
Okay, well, I got to eat dinner. I got to urinate. I need a shower because I went exercising and I haven't taken a shower yet. If we could just crank up our carbon production, we wouldn't need those fucking icebreakers. LOLs. Harry Toe, that was from Forced Name Change. Harry Toe says, if a politician during a debate ever called their opponent gay and retarded, the world... Dude, look, trust the plan. By elections 20... What year are we now? 25? By elections 2029, Pierre Poilievre will be calling a geriatric Mark Carney gay and retarded. Without the GHEY, you got to censor, self-censoring. Forced Name Change says, I'm watching the leadership debate in Canada between Tweedledee, Tweedledum, Tweedle, what a fucking moron, and their token Quebecer. My blood is absolutely boiling. We are fucked. I'm not saying that Canada is not fucked. I'm just saying that Pierre's moment of the election was what I called. And I'm going to go put it on blast. You should all do the same. And may it at least pause the destruction of Canada. Maybe next election, Pierre Poilievre says, yes, I have grown political testicles. They feel like normal testicles, but they're filled with politics and courage. My issue with Pierre, that effing coward, he was letting Blanchette. He was letting Blanchette do the hard work. I'm wondering if they didn't have an agreement. Because Blanchette knows he's not getting elected, got nothing to lose, be pro-Quebec and anti-Carney. That's a good deal. Cultivated Mind says, I remember when the U.S. had these types of debates pre-2016, boring and full of lies to dull the masses. Well, in pre-2016, they might have had the debates, but they didn't have me, and they didn't have the internet. And that is what is the difference right now. It's the democratization of information in real time. And I'm not trying to make fun of you, Cultivated Mind. I know you. I love you. I've seen you here before. Yeah, the difference is now we get the bullshit with the bullshit caller-outer people. Me. Lone Canuck says, Singh really is a low IQ retard. How many times have we used the word retard tonight? As a Windsor native, I would like to apologize for the rest of the country for creating him. Well, in fairness, he was only born in Windsor, but he's a born Canadian, so you cannot deport Jagmeet Singh, regardless of what you want to do. Lone Canuck says, if you want to decrease housing costs, we need mass deportation. Yeah, by the way, so this is what I was trying to say earlier. They had said, we're not going to talk about deportation tonight. And I was on with freaking Richard Surrett earlier. And I said, mother effer, Carney, Pierre, better talk about immigration and housing. It blew my mind that they didn't talk about immigration and housing during yesterday's French debate. That's it, by the way. Now you got to know your candidates. I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, I truly believe if Pierre loses, Canada will be dead. We are barely on life support now as it is. Yep, I agree. And if Pierre gets elected, your life support just got a little injection of, what's the word I'm looking for? Morphine? So you get another month. And you better hope that Pierre finds his political testicles. The Lone Canucks says, as a Windsor-born auto worker, we don't claim sing. So that was amazing. Did I miss any of the tipped question? See, I came back to locals to see if I've missed anything, and this is what I come back to. What is this? I look like a woman. By the way, my nipples look like that. I don't know how anybody knew that my nipples actually look like that. I've got the small.
That's so wrong.
No, I've got the small nipples. Like nipples are very interesting, and well, I've never seen enough nipples. But if you've seen enough nipples, you know, like some are tight and brown, others are like big and diluted, others are like. Whoop. So can I just get out of here? Yeah, I can. There you go.
You do have some super chats that I dropped them in your Twitter DMs.
Oh, so I'll get to the super chats. I will die on the hill of my firearms. If Carney comes for my guns, he gets. I'm not reading it because I don't want to get in trouble. I'm in a foreign country on a visa, and I want to respect the laws of the land. Let me go to the.
I also think I might have found that clip of Carney you were looking for. I also dropped that into.
Yeah, it was recent though.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna check that. I'm not gonna share that one now because I want to make sure that one I can use later. Because I remember him saying we need to build our relationship with China because of America. And then tonight, who is that? I'm looking to the ground. Is that a dog? That's my wife. I'm in big trouble. I saw the foot come in first, and I thought it was the. Rory F says, all I hear them say is Alberta needs to secede. And that is a fair observation. Oh, sorry. Hold on 1 second. We're not looking at the same thing because I have not shared my Asian Guru private chat. All I hear them say is Alberta needs to secede. Allegan News says there is a lot of activity in press room about rebel media, CBC and government media, big mad at independent media, videos on X. Yeah. Ezra Levant tweeted out that, they were actually, there's no scrum after tonight's debate because apparently they did so much damage yesterday that they can't do it. Viva, we here in Canada appreciate you and all your coverage. Thank you. Maureen, because I know you and I know you're sincere, I thank you. To all those CPC bros who can't stand reality and who think your best defense to the most legitimate criticism is, well, you left to Florida. Okay. Whew. Let's even operate on the flawed basis that all of your insults and criticism against me are right. I'm a loser. I'm a Mossad. I'm short. I left to Florida. All right. Everything that I have said about Pierre is true. And my goodness, my only hope is that he actually, holy hell, that last moment, I'm telling you that last moment is the moment of the debate. It's the moment of the election. You got 2 weeks to ramp up that moment, to put it on blast. I also do believe that I posted the Mark Carney saying we got to inflict maximum harm on America. I posted that to Truth. And may Donald Trump see it, because Mark Carney is a rapacious piece of shit. He's a piece of shit lying scumbag. I'm sorry to swear. He's a very, very bad man. And it's not because he's gotten away with it that he's not bad. I know that he's a bad man. Set aside the Epstein, set aside Ghislaine Maxwell, set aside Prince Andrew, set aside moving to the UK, sending his daughter to the Tavistock so that she can think that she's a man. Set aside all that shit. Set aside him not being able to say how many genders there are. We're an inclusive country. Set aside all that. He's a political whore. He's a globalist whore. And he will sell Canada to China faster than you can say, I had so many jokes. If I were a stand-up comic, I could have ended that joke with the punchline of punchlines. But me so polite, and I'm not going to do it, although I think I just did it there. He will sell Canada out to the Chinese if he hasn't already done it. 1 month in power? Bullshit. That man has been advising Trudeau for 5 freaking years. That man has been investing in his advice for 5 freaking years. He is China. He's working with China. He is indebted to China. He's in business with China. And you can't trust that guy as far as you can throw him. And I'm a strong man. I don't think I can throw him. Outlook_com. I'm sensitive to flattery. You did really good for a job for us tonight, Viva. I was trying to be quiet. I was trying to let it go through. I'm blushing, says Fiances. That is awesome, says President Poopy Pants. Must be Joe Biden. We're going to end it on a good laugh. And it's going to be, because I saw it. View all. There's so many.
And Finboy is going a little
Oh,
crazy.
God. Hold on and grab this. Let me just bring it. You will all vomit as I shall. What's amazing is, okay, first of all, his abs are very good. Like, do you see the cursor? Do you see me? Do you see my cursor on his nipples?
Yes.
Okay, fine. That's just making sure. So he's eating the bugs. I don't know what the rabbit's about. Those ab muscles are not healthy because you've left too much over on the side. The nipples are accurate and the bare chestedness is accurate. And let me see his teeth. What's scary is that looks like me. And Fred Savage. I don't know what else is going. Oh God, get out of here. We're gonna get out of here. This is too much. All right. I've got this. I've got my phone. It's burning a hole in my phone. I've got to go get it. Go. Encryptus, tomorrow's Friday. My kids are off school for some reason. I have no idea why. And the homeschool kid is on school. Viva too short. Need a better angle for the smut shots. Yeah. Viva is I'm going to go get some food. All right. So go and enjoy the night. I'll be live tomorrow. That was amazing. Snip, clip, share away. Let me just go see what the markets are saying. Yeah, the markets are not really changing much. Liberal majority, up 3%. I don't care anymore. I will lose everything if the Canadians are stupid enough to vote for Mark the Carnage Carney, Mark China Carney, Mark Commie Connie, Mark the globalist WEF 3 passport carrying Davos speaking WEF globalist Bilderberg meeting attending whore. If you vote for them, enjoy it. I hope it felt good. Fucking 10 years in power, and you're going to go try to give them another 4 years. Why not just can't say what I'm going to say because that will be misinterpreted by many a platform. Tomorrow's Good Friday. Go and enjoy Good Friday. I'm not sure that you're supposed to enjoy Good Friday. Maybe it's supposed to be a solemn day of repenting. May it be a meaningful Good Friday. Oh, that's why they're off school. Sorry. Thank you for reminding me. May you enjoy your Good Friday. Make it meaningful. And may the globalists lose. May the populists win. And may... it's not for love of Mark, for Pierre Poilievre. It's for despising Mark Carney. Amazing how you get a PQ, you get a Bloc Québécois separatist on stage, but not Maxime Bernier. We witnessed a moment, and the moments shall last. Go and enjoy the night. Godspeed. Tomorrow, live, 4:00. Thank you all for being here. Peace.